A mysterious person walks down a store aisle, stopping in front of a cooler stacked with unicorn plushies, green box tools, and colorful jars, and takes a photo of the shelves with a smartphone. He slides open the cooler door and grabs a cold glass bottle of Safe Area Cola. A voice calls out, "Are you going with cola?" as he looks down at the soda bottle, replying, "Huh? Oh, yes." "What an excellent choice," the clerk says, before suddenly launching a violent, unexpected strike at him. His eyes widen in absolute shock as he is struck down. In that terrifying split second, he thinks to himself, "I'm a dopamine addict." A pool of fresh blood slowly spreads across the floor as a narrative box announces, "Let's go back 1 hour." Back in his room, hands fly across a keyboard as a caption reads, "I'll say it again." Sitting in front of his monitor with his headphones on, he reiterates, "I'm a dopamine addict." He reflects on his past attempts to find excitement, recalling how he tried immersing himself in idols, rock bands, the Premier League, and even the Three Kingdoms. He also turned to extreme sports, martial arts, and parkour to find a thrill. "These were all things I did to get a dopamine hit," he notes, recalling a photo of himself skydiving. But his hands suddenly freeze over the keyboard as he remembers how even those high adrenaline activities eventually stopped giving him a rush. With a sigh, he thoughts, "I'm stuck," remembering when he first started playing online games to find a new thrill. Staring at a game screen depicting a ruined city, he mutters, "Let's try again," admitting that he never actually wanted to get into gaming in the first place. He remembers his mother, who had 31 missed calls on her phone because she would never pick up while playing. "But once I got a taste of it, I was hooked," he admits, constantly searching for greater thrills as he played explosive apocalyptic action games. He ended up mastering all kinds of apocalyptic games, but there was one particular game that gave him the biggest rush of all. He looks at the title screen for Apocalypse, Safe Zone, as the text declares, "Here is the premise." A dark screen displays the core premise of the game. A meteor impact plunged Earth into an ice age. An image of a massive meteor striking the Earth appears as the text reads, "And most of humanity was wiped out. And the survivors built safe zones to cling to life. At least that's the lore," he explains, as 2 characters in uniform carry supplies. A map displays the 9 safe zones in the game: candy, cola, cigarette, beer, chicken, cocaine, knife, love, and the unicorn zone. Sitting at his computer, he mutters, "That way doesn't work either," as he explains that players can choose their starting area from any of the 8 zones except knife, beginning the game as a 10-year-old child. A back shot shows a player character starting out as a young boy dressed in a white uniform. A hand clicks on a glowing blue futuristic hologram interface as the narration explains, "Once you survive the early game, you must prepare for the end until you turn 20. Ruined buildings crumble to pieces as the text warns, because the moment you turn 20, the second apocalypse begins." A cute chibi researcher points upward, signifying the completion of Phase 1 of the game. Looking intensely at his monitor, he thinks, "But the game only gets fun after that. Let's try eliminating this one first this time." Survival, he notes, explaining that once the second apocalypse begins, players must fight for survival against the other zones, which is when the starting zone choice becomes crucial. A yellow warning sign stands next to a powerful character as the text states, "Because the harder your starting zone is, the higher the stats you can obtain." A hooded figure with a sword emblem on their hood stands in a dark street as the narration box warns. On top of that, the people from the locked knife zone are complete psychopaths. A sinister hooded figure with a syringe grabs a terrified survivor as the text warns, if they spot a survivor from a lower difficulty zone, they'll try to kill them on sight. Taking a sip of coffee, he smiles and thinks, "So you have to choose your starting zone very carefully. But for me, those insane elements, ever since I first played Safe Zone, looked at these guys, they were exactly what kept me hooked for so long." A loud doorbell rings and a text box reads, "But even that ends today." His hand suddenly stops typing on his illuminated mechanical keyboard. Clenching his fist tightly over the keyboard, he whispers in relief, "Finally." A notification pops up reading, "Hidden area, knife, all stage clear," as he proudly declares, "I've seen the ending for every single safe zone. I cleared them all, even the hidden knife zone." Taking off his headphones with a quiet sigh, he sits in the silence of his dark room. His phone suddenly dings, prompting him to think, time to get started on that, as he looks down at the screen. He uploads a post to a forum titled, "Dopamine Addict's Guide to Starting in the Hidden Safe Zone Knife." "I wanted as many people as possible to enjoy this game, so I regularly posted guides on the community forums. You could call it my little hobby," he says, viewing his community profile. His phone begins to vibrate with a notification. "Home Protector left a comment on your post." Holding his phone, he notices Home Protector has left several long comments complaining about the sheer absurdity and difficulty of his guide. Looking closely at the screen, he reads Home Protector's comment questioning if starting in that violent zone is even possible, while Room Corner Hubby snarkily replies to go read the guide.
I usually delete hate comments instantly, but, he thinks, I'll let this comment slide just this once.
He reads through a chat exchange where a user asks how to unlock the hidden zone, and he replies that they must get every single starting ending for the other zones, pointing out his guides. Room Corner Hubby replies in disbelief, writing, "Did you actually expect people to follow those guides? This guy's insane." Staring silently at his phone, he decides he's had enough and promptly blocks the user. Outside, a loud, angry shout echoes from an apartment window. "What the? This bastard actually blocked me." He scrolls through the remaining comments, reading the complaints about how insanely difficult it is to play as a 10-year-old child in a zone where everyone tries to kill you, and wonders to himself, "My guides are hard?" Looking at a positive comment on his post, he thinks to himself, "At least this person is thanking me." Reading the user's message, "Thanks for the great guides as always, bro," with a thumbs up. Holding his phone in his dark room, he takes some comfort in knowing his hard work wasn't entirely in vain, thinking, "I'm sure my guides are helpful to someone." He stares blankly at his monitor with a quiet sigh, thinking to himself that his long journey has finally come to an end. Looking at his monitor displaying the title screen of Apocalypse, Safe Zone, he declares with a mix of relief and emptiness, "I'm finally done with this game." He decides to step outside to get some fresh air, walking down a quiet city street under a starry night sky. As he walks, the post-game emptiness begins to creep in, and he mutters to himself, "My dopamine levels are already dropping." He sighs deeply, realizing the high is gone, and thinks, "I need to find a new thrill." But where?
Suddenly, he pauses on the sidewalk as something unexpected catches his attention.
He peers through the glass of a brightly lit storefront, wondering, was there always a convenience store here? The door chime rings softly as he steps inside, the bright light from the entrance casting a long shadow on the pavement. He looks around the store in utter amazement, noticing shelves stocked with candy, cola, cigarettes, beer, chicken, kitchen knives, and even unicorn plushies. He realizes this place is exactly like a save zone from his game, wondering if they did a collaboration. He quickly dismisses the idea, thinking, no way, the game doesn't even have a Korean version, so a collab is out of the question. Taking a photo of the bizarre inventory with his smartphone, he muses, it's more likely that the owner is a safe zone fanatic who ordered all this weird stock. But still, trying to run a business with these items is crazy.
He decides to upload the photo to his community forum under his username Dopamine Addict with the title, "A convenience store that looks like it was opened by a safe zone fanatic," thinking maybe I should give them some free publicity.
The convenience store is quietly filled with rows of colorful unicorn plushies on one side and shelves of packaged foods on the other. The store clerk suddenly speaks up, asking, "Are you going with the cola?" Taken aback, he replies, "Huh? Oh, yes," while secretly wondering if the clerk is mocking him for taking so many photos just to buy a single drink. He looks down at the bottle of Safe Area Cola in his hand, feeling a strange tension building up in the quiet shop. As he inspects the bottle, he notices something odd, thinking, but this cola doesn't seem to have a barcode, right as the clerk silently raises a weapon behind him, prepared to strike. With a terrifying strike, a pool of blood splatters as a chilling voice declares, "What an excellent choice." The force of the unexpected blow sends him crashing heavily to the ground, his vision fading as his mind spins in shock. A heavy silence descends as the scene fades into a cold, snow-filled sky, leaving his former life behind. He suddenly opens his eyes to find himself wearing a white military-style uniform, his expression frozen in absolute disbelief. Looking down at his new hands and clothes, he shouts in shock, "What the fuck?" before realizing with a sudden surge of excitement, it seems I've just been handed a whole new source of dopamine. A blond boy with red eyes standing nearby clutches his head in utter despair, screaming, "Did I really just transmigrate into that trash game, Safe Zone?" Prompting our protagonist to observe that he has been transmigrated alongside a foul-mouthed jerk. The cold reality of the game world settles in as two souls find themselves trapped in a dangerous frozen wasteland. As they walk past the high castle walls under the falling snow, our protagonist asks, "So, you picked the cola at the convenience store too? And your username is Room Corner Hubby?" The blond boy crosses his arms defensively, irritated by the labels and retorting, "That foul-mouthed troll? Foul-mouthed? Then what, a social misfit?" He huffs defensively, muttering, "Who doesn't swear like that on the internet these days? What about you? What's your username?" He hesitates, thinking to himself that he never expected to be transmigrated with someone he had just blocked online. Realizing it would be incredibly awkward, he decides he absolutely cannot tell him that he is Dopamine Addict. With no other option, he resolves to hide his identity, thinking, so I have no choice, I'll just borrow a name. With a confident, friendly smile on his face, he lies smoothly, "I'm T-Bastard." The blonde boy looks at him suspiciously and asks, "Then did you get the convenience store address from Home Protector too?" To which he quickly lies, "Yeah," prompting the other boy to think, "Liar," as they continue walking side by side. The blonde boy clutches his head in frustration, crying, "Why is this happening to me?" While our protagonist pieces together how they both ended up here, wondering why Home Protector leaked the address in the first place. Our protagonist realizes that Home Protector must have leaked the address of the store, and Room Corner Hubby unfortunately went there and got dragged into this mess. He ponders a chilling possibility, wondering there might be other players possessed in this game, and considering other zones like Cigarette or Unicorn. He looks down at a mental projection of the future, realizing grimly, once the second apocalypse begins, we might have to fight players from other zones. The stakes are higher than ever, meaning they will have to risk their lives in deadly battles against other transmigrated players. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, he decides, "No, I'll worry about that later. For now, survival comes first." Suddenly, the blonde boy perks up with an excited, sparkling expression, asking, "But if we're possessed in a game, can we use the game system?" Our protagonist repeats blankly, "Game system?" And the blonde boy eagerly nods, explaining, "Yeah, like quests, shops, and skill windows. Screens popping up, allocating stats when you level up, stuff like that." Full of hope, the blonde boy strikes a dramatic pose and shouts at the top of his lungs, "Status window, inventory!" A dead leaf drifts silently past them as an awkward, freezing silence falls over the snowy street. Refusing to give up, the blonde boy desperately shouts every gaming term he can think of, begging for a status screen, a mission codex, or anything at all to appear. But absolutely nothing happens. Devastated, the blonde boy falls to his knees, muttering, "I guess there's no such thing here." He begins to vent his anger at the absurdity of their situation, complaining, damn it, they possess us here against our will and don't even give us a perk? We really have to clear this with nothing? And as kids, too? Does that make any sense? Throwing someone who lived a good life like me into a place like this?" Our protagonist looks at him skeptically, questioning, "A good life?" As the blonde boy slumps in regret, sighing, "Sigh, damn it, I should have sworn less." Sitting on the cold, snowy ground, the blonde boy sighs and looks up, asking, "T-Bastard, what are you going to do now? Have you played the Cola Zone? How far did you clear?" The protagonist repeats, "My clear progress?" while thinking to himself that he has actually cleared the entire game all the way to the knife zone. Recognizing that revealing his true achievement would expose him as the legendary dopamine addict, he decides, I should probably lower it to match T-Bastard's pace. He casually replies, "Up to Unicorn," leaving the blonde boy wide-eyed in absolute shock as he gasps, "What? Stop lying. Only a few people have cleared up to Unicorn, even among Dopamine Addict and his hardcore followers. If you cleared that far? Come to think of it, that bastard was the first one to post that convenience store address. Then doesn't that mean he's possessed here too? Where was his main base again? Was it Unicorn? This is weird. For someone who hates me, he seems to know an awful lot about me. Calm down. Now that I think about it, when I posted my last guide, he was the next one to comment after Home Protector. Wait, does this guy actually... I am a follower of Dopamine Addict. I just didn't post on the community, but I know all his guides. You know all of them? Didn't you read his guides too? I think you commented every time. Yeah? I read the guide, but in the end, that bastard blocked me. Damn it, I left comments and upvoted all his guides? That son of a bitch. He has no gratitude. No matter how busy I was, I read his posts the second they went up. So it's not that he hates me, but he felt a one-sided bond with me, got blocked, and threw a tantrum? And he said he always upvoted my guides. Damn it, of all people, why did I have to get possessed alongside a dopamine addict fanboy? Maybe he's not such a bad guy after all. Dopamine's internal evaluation of Room Corner Lubu slightly increases. This guy is a good citizen who upvotes my guides. Anyway, you asked what we're going to do now, right? From now on, I'm going to become an illegitimate child, the illegitimate child strategy. It's one of the strategies I posted on the community. The Cola Zone is located in a snowy region on the edge of the continent, and it's ruled and protected by a military faction. The absolute ruler and commander of that military faction is Hayden Goodman. The illegitimate child strategy is to become his illegitimate child and successor. Are you crazy? You're going to use the illegitimate child strategy? Irritated and completely stressed, the blonde boy's sweat drops as he stares at the protagonist in absolute disbelief. If you're scared, find your own way. Hey! Who's scared? I'm just asking if it's even possible. To use the illegitimate child strategy, you have to trick the commander. If you get caught lying, you could literally lose your head. So you are scared. No, I'm not. I'm trying to look out for you here. I don't blame Room Corner Lubu for feeling this way. After all, we were possessed into a game overnight. And into an apocalyptic world where people could die at any second, trapped in the bodies of 10-year-old kids. It's only natural to be afraid. But strangely, I'm not afraid at all. Actually, ever since I got trapped in this game, I've felt a strange thrill. I thought I'd run out of dopamine to get from this game.
Besides, I'm the one who has to trick the commander, and I don't care if I die trying. What?
And who knows, maybe if I die, I'll go back to reality, escaping the game. Die? But what if you actually die? Whether I die from failing the game or get killed for lying, it's all the same. You crazy bastard. Dopamine rush.
Silent frustration. Then what am I supposed to do? It's not like you need anyone's help for the illegitimate child strategy.
Is that what you're worried about? Since I can pull off this strategy on my own, in that case, I know the perfect place for you. By any way, have you served in the military? What? No, I literally just turned 20. 20? Right. No wonder you act like such a brat.
Since you're unenlisted, that works out perfectly. What works out perfectly?
The dark-haired protagonist smiles with a soft but highly suspicious grin, leaving his young companion feeling deeply uneasy. Outside the massive stone walls of the military fortress, armed guards stand on high alert amidst the swirling snow. You're joining the army. The cold winter snow continues to drift silently over the grim and quiet fortress town. The military? All of a sudden?
You know it too, that we're orphans.
The reason this world is divided into 9 safe zones is to protect humanity from alien creatures. The first apocalypse, the Ice Age, started with a giant meteorite falling from the sky. And mysterious alien creatures pouring out of it? That's the lore of this world. That's why the Unicorn Zone fled to the sky. And the Beer Zone fled underwater.
Except for those 2, all other zones had to regularly subjugate alien creatures.
If we enlist now, we'll definitely get dragged into a subjugation war. Subjugation war event triggered. Your character is only 10 years old, but you must participate in the subjugation.
But we're orphans, the narrator notes as the 2 boys stand beneath a stitched house cutout. We have no one to look after us and no home to return to. Our protagonist looks at his companion and explains, we have to enlist to survive. It covers room and board, and we can learn how to use firearms.
The blonde boy runs a hand through his hair, sighing deeply. Fine, we have to survive first, so I get it. But I don't speak English. How am I supposed to survive in the military?
He holds his head in defeat as they stand in the middle of the snowy street, completely lost in his own despair. Our protagonist suddenly realizes a crucial detail, staring blankly as he thinks, this game never got a Korean release. I forgot, the guy who self-taught himself English just to write walkthroughs.
The quiet, snowy scene shows a grand stone building with arched windows under the falling snow.
A hand is shown sliding a white envelope with a red wax seal across a wooden desk.
Walking back to where the blonde boy is waiting, our protagonist announces, I submitted the enlistment application. They told us to wait. The blonde boy turns around in surprise, asking, really? Our protagonist calmly explains, since the Cola Zone accepts 10-year-olds as soldiers, it'll probably get approved. While behind them, a soldier with clenched fists trembles in anger. The blonde boy gets incredibly fired up, pointing a finger in anger as he yells, even the enlistment application is in English. They transmigrated us into a game and didn't even give us a Korean language patch? While our protagonist thinks to himself, there he goes again, I filled out everything for him, from his name to his reason for enlisting. Our protagonist instructs him, from now on, all you have to say is, yes, sir, while a memory of a screaming drill instructor flashes behind him, leaving him looking extremely deadpan as he asks, huh?
The blonde boy ponders deeply with his hand on his chin, asking, by the way, is it true? As our protagonist looks back at him. Looking around at the passing soldiers talking amongst themselves, our protagonist notices, it seems like we're the only ones speaking Korean.
No one seems to care, he observes, watching the soldiers go about their business in the military academy. Is it because of the game's setting? The protagonist wonders as a digital stream of data glows behind him. After the first apocalypse, people of various nationalities ended up living together. In that case,
our protagonist instructs the blonde boy, make sure to write down any important information in Korean, so the NPCs here can't read it. The blonde boy smiles confidently and replies, that's easy enough.
Our protagonist looks back and adds, and one more thing, once you enlist, we can't move together for the time being. Once Commander Hayden recognizes me as his successor, I'll call for you, he explains. The blonde boy gasps in disbelief, shouting, what? We're going our separate ways until then? The blonde boy looks at him suspiciously and says, "Since you asked if I was unenlisted, you must have served already," picturing our protagonist in a military uniform performing a perfect salute. The blonde boy leans closer, whispering playfully, "How about enlisting in the military one more time with me? You seem like you'd be good at it," while our protagonist stares back with a flat, unimpressed expression.
This bastard is saying terrifying things with such an innocent face, the blonde boy fumes in irritation. Meanwhile, our protagonist crosses his arms defensively and reiterates, "I told you, I have to carry out the illegitimate child strategy." Our protagonist turns to walk away, quietly thinking to himself, "Together." He looks down with a serious expression, thinking, come to think of it, if other players were transmigrated too, how many more are in this zone besides the two of us? I should establish a code of conduct for when we meet them. Pointing down at his boots, the protagonist says, "Anyway, just make sure you memorize what I told you. Don't act like a useless soldier, okay?" "We're on solo play for the time being," our protagonist states, walking away into the snowy streets as the blonde boy stares in shock. Suddenly, the blonde boy yells out in frustration, "Hey, you have to tell me one more thing before you go," while our protagonist glances back with a confused look. The blonde boy demands, "What did you write down as my English name?" causing our protagonist to sweat drop and flatly mutter, "Ah." Far away in the enlistment office, an officer looks at the application paper, sweat dropping in absolute confusion as he mutters, "What a weird name." Our protagonist's voice echoes in his mind. "You'll find out when the officer calls you later. I wrote it down so it's easy to understand." Crows fly through a dark, ominous sky as a massive shout of "Darling? Outsider?" echoes across the field, followed by a painful scream of "Ow!" Back in the bright sunset, our protagonist smiles to himself, thinking, "All right, looks like Room Corner Hubby's enlistment application went through without a hitch." Now, he determines, as the wind blows autumn leaves past a quiet wooden cabin in the warm sunset, time to find Luna Moon's grave. Our protagonist kneels down on the edge of a snowy cliff, searching the cold ground with his hands in the glowing light of the sunset. Staring down solemnly, he thinks, the grave of that poor woman, buried with the token of the illegitimate child. A holographic screen displays the file of Commander Hayden Goodman wearing an eye patch. In the game, Commander Hayden was originally from another zone. The narrative continues, showing Hayden lying bloodied on the ground. Before joining the Kola army, he almost lost his life, but was miraculously saved by a soldier. A beautiful, silver-haired female soldier smiles softly under a bright, glowing full moon. That soldier's name was Luna Moon. Later, after joining the Kola army, Hayden became lovers with Luna Moon, and they even had a child. A bright bubble shows their happy past as they wonder, what should we name the baby? But the dream was cut short. A dark shadow looms over Hayden as the previous commander commands, "If you marry my daughter, you will inherit everything I have." Under the pressure of power, contrary to everyone's expectations, Hayden married the previous commander's daughter. Before leaving, Hayden promised that once he became commander, he would send for Luna Moon and their child, pleading desperately, "Trust me and wait for me." Staring ahead with a cold, hardened expression, our protagonist thinks, but he could never keep that promise. Because Luna Moon suddenly vanished, the narration notes, showing her from behind as she disappears into a heavy snowstorm. Suddenly, a sharp glass-shattering sound startles our protagonist, causing his eyes to widen in surprise as a shadow shifts in the dark. Peeking out from behind a large rock, he spots a drunken townsperson clutching a bottle of alcohol, stumbling in the snow and wondering, was that a rat? Hiding back in the shadows, our protagonist lets out a quiet sigh of relief, thinking, that was close. I almost messed up. Looking at the intruder, he muses, "A pauper? I need to be careful. It'll be trouble if I get caught." The scene flashes back to his past life playing the game on his computer, where Hayden commands his troops on screen shouting, "Search every inch of this place." Our protagonist creeps through the snowy cemetery under the bright moonlight, eventually stopping before a wooden crossgrave draped in a white cloth, thinking solemnly that Hayden searched everywhere, without ever knowing that Luna Moon was already dead. Looking down at the grave, he thinks, I feel a bit bad about disturbing a grave, but I have no choice. He reaches out to touch the glowing magical seal protecting the tomb, thinking, because the key item for the illegitimate child strategy is inside. He scoops up a handful of earth, but his eyes widen in shock as his thoughts race. The soil is soft. Don't tell me. The protagonist looks down at the soft soil of the grave in disbelief, sweat dripping from his face as he wonders if another player has already beaten him to this spot. The narration reveals that in the past, a deadly plague swept through the slums where Luna Moon was staying. While everyone else who was healthy fled, she chose to stay behind alone to care for the sick as a dedicated military doctor. Despite her selflessness, before long, Luna Moon unfortunately caught the plague as well. After she succumbed to the illness, the surviving patients whom she had cared for built a grave for her out of deep gratitude and grief.
A crow sits quietly in the freezing winter night under the glowing full moon as the sound of shoveling earth echoes through the snowy cemetery. The protagonist reflects on Luna Moon's tragic fate, noting that she was a decent character whose refuge was unfortunately struck by a plague. However, he admits that this isolation worked out in his favor, since the plague keeps people away from her grave. He thinks to himself that the area was so isolated that even Commander Hayden couldn't find her, right until his shovel suddenly strikes something hard with a loud thud. Peering into the dug-up grave, his eyes widen in surprise as he realizes that the coffin is already open. He looks closer, muttering that his suspicions were correct. Inside the open coffin lies a skeleton, and a glowing light reveals that Commander Hayden's token is indeed missing. The protagonist explains that the standard walkthrough for the illegitimate child route begins by retrieving Commander Hayden's token from Luna Moon's grave and presenting it to him. To be recognized as Commander Hayden's long-lost illegitimate child, a player absolutely needs the token he once gave to Luna Moon. In a flashback, a pair of hands gently holds the dog tags inscribed with Luna Moon's name. The game's standard walkthrough dictates that this vital token is none other than those very dog tags. Looking down at the skeleton in the coffin, the protagonist admits that he had half expected this development. He realizes with a grim look that he truly was a step too late, envisioning the rival player who had already snatched the dog tags away. Instead of panicking, the protagonist lets out a quiet smirk, thinking to himself that things have just gotten incredibly interesting. He reassures himself that there is no need to worry because he possesses secret knowledge about where the actual, real token is hidden. He looks down at the skeleton, reflecting that while he kept it out of his self-written walkthroughs, the real token Commander Hayden gave Luna Moon was never the dog tags. He slowly reaches his hand toward the skeleton, revealing that the true token lies somewhere unexpected. A loud, jarring scream echoes through the silent, cold night. He holds up a beautiful, glittering ring made from a fragment of the meteorite that brought ruin to the world, the Moonstone Ring. Since someone beat him to the dog tags, the protagonist realizes he has no choice but to use this special alternative token to clear the route. Staring at the glowing ring, he understands that even if her grave was looted after her death, Luna Moon likely never wanted this precious ring to be taken. He sincerely apologizes to Luna Moon for disturbing her eternal rest and asks for her forgiveness as he prepares to pose as her child from this moment onward. In return, he promises that if he succeeds in becoming the commander's successor, he will truly treat him as a father and do everything in his power to survive. Suddenly, a blinding flash of light erupts from the ring, illuminating the snowy cemetery. As a blue magical aura envelops him, a system message appears declaring that he has taken a step closer to the secrets of the apocalypse, leaving him completely shocked by this unexpected event. Panicking that the bright light will get him caught, he is interrupted by multiple system screens chiming to life, partially unlocking his system and offering him a special all-zone clearer perk. Looking at the floating holographic menus, he wonders if this perk was unlocked by meeting specific hidden conditions, while also hoping to check if he can connect with other transmigrated users. Although he is curious about the locked chat function, he decides to prioritize opening his special perk and presses the confirmation button on the system prompt. The system welcomes him as player Dopamine Addict and grants him title inheritances for being the only player to clear all zones. He is amazed to find powerful titles like Friend of Luna Moon and Eternal Commander waiting for him. He explains how equipping the Friend of Luna Moon title will allow him to instantly and easily gain massive favorability with any NPCs who were friendly toward Luna Moon in the past. Knowing he has a critical meeting with Commander Hayden tomorrow, the protagonist quickly selects and equips the Friend of Luna Moon title from his list. He muses that since only all-zone clearers like himself receive such powerful perks, any other transmigrated players in this world must be starting completely from scratch. As he questions the motives of whoever transmigrated them into this game, a sudden system chime rings out, catching him off guard. A glowing system window appears, stating that the effects of his newly equipped Friend of Luna Moon title are currently being applied to a nearby target. The protagonist raises his hand in confusion, wondering why the title effect is suddenly being triggered and applied right now. He remembers that this notification only triggers when an NPC affected by the title is nearby, which deeply confuses him since he is supposedly completely alone in the graveyard. A tense silence falls over the graveyard as his hand tightly grips the handle of his shovel, preparing for any sudden danger. When nothing immediately happens, he decides to dismiss the strange notification and quickly begins shoveling the dirt back to cover up the grave. As he departs, he wonders to himself if the rival player who stole the dog tags has already headed straight to Commander Hayden's residence. The scene transitions to the Grand Military Academy building under a bleak sky filled with soaring crows, accompanied by the narrator's lament. As the protagonist approaches the commander's residence, the guards at the gate stop him and question his presence. Meanwhile, the narrator remarks on the tragedy of a diligent player who is only trying to follow a perfect walkthrough. The protagonist puts on an innocent expression and tells the guards that he knows about the people His Excellency Hayden is searching for, while the narrator notes that he will have to kick his rival player out himself. To the protagonist's absolute astonishment, the guards murmur among themselves that the young master was right and that the kid actually showed up just as predicted. One of the guards turns and tells him to follow, explaining that the mysterious young master is already waiting inside for him. As he is led down the lavishly decorated hallways of the mansion, the protagonist sweats slightly, realizing that things are not unfolding at all how he had anticipated. Upon entering the room, he is greeted by a smug, red-haired boy who confidently welcomes him and asks if he is also a player. The protagonist stands quietly with his back turned, carefully analyzing the situation before him. A system status window reveals that the red-haired boy's username is Taejongtasebeyonce and that he has not even unlocked his system yet. Meanwhile, the red-haired boy tells him to relax and drop his guard. Pointing out that there is no Korean patch in this world, the red-haired boy smiles and notes that they can speak in Korean without the locals understanding them. Meanwhile, a system screen reveals his username is actually SaveZone8, a player from the Cola Zone who hasn't even unlocked his system yet. Looking completely unimpressed, our protagonist flatly replies that he is already well aware of that fact. Standing before the red-haired boy and his quiet, freckled companion, the protagonist asks why he was waiting around for other players in the first place. The red-haired boy chuckles and turns slightly, telling him he is quite impatient and that they should exchange names first before diving into details. Inwardly questioning the suggestion, the protagonist is caught off guard by the request to exchange names. He quickly realizes that because neither of them has unlocked their systems yet, they won't be able to inspect his player information. Remembering a name from his past encounters, the protagonist decides to lie and introduces himself as T-Bastard, resolving to trick them and get by just like before. The red-haired boy takes a confident step forward and prepares to formally introduce himself. With a dramatic flourish, he loudly declares that his name is none other than Dopamine Addict. He flashes a smug, confident grin as he triumphantly gestures to the dog tags hanging around his neck. The protagonist stares back in absolute disbelief, demanding to know who the boy just claimed to be. Misinterpreting his shocked reaction, the red-haired boy chuckles smugly, assuming his legendary reputation precedes him. He boastfully adds that he was incredibly famous back on the game's community message boards. Running a hand through his hair, the imposter brags that people used to call him the first all-zone clearer of the safe zone, completely unaware that the real dopamine addict is standing right in front of him, dying of secondhand embarrassment. Horrified by the display, the protagonist shivers and cringe, frantically wondering if he ever looked that incredibly obnoxious back when he was playing the game. The imposter looks down on the protagonist, concluding that he must have just barged into the mansion recklessly without any real strategy. He then dismissively asks the protagonist to turn around and leave the premises immediately. Showing off the dog tags, the imposter reminds him that the illegitimate child strategy cannot even begin without this crucial token, though he admits the protagonist's bold confidence is somewhat impressive. He slaps the protagonist on the shoulder, offering him a chance to work under him as a lackey, just like his other freckled companion. The protagonist glances at the freckled boy and suddenly has an epiphany, realizing exactly what is going on here. He reflects on how players who couldn't adapt to this harsh environment died before they could even attempt a walkthrough, while the survivors are naturally drawn here to execute the game's best strategies. The protagonist realizes that Safe Zone 8 was actively recruiting other transmigrated players to act as his obedient pawns. In order to successfully secure his position as Commander Hayden's successor in the future, the imposter knew he would eventually require capable subordinates to handle the dirty work. When the imposter asks if he needs some time to think over the offer, the protagonist immediately answers with a firm no. Completely rejecting any idea of working with the fake, the protagonist boldly demands that he go and call the commander instead. Looking at the imposter with a cold glare, the protagonist is deeply offended that someone is attempting to misuse his own meticulously crafted strategy right in front of him. He decides to play along, promising to testify that the imposter is indeed Hayden's son, intending to show him what a masterclass walkthrough truly looks like. The imposter turns around and leaves the room, shutting the heavy wooden door behind him with a sharp click. Once the fake dopamine addict is out of the room, the protagonist narrows his eyes and prepares to make his next move. He turns his attention to the freckled, red-haired boy who remained behind. The protagonist questions him, asking if he also came here seeking the illegitimate child route and wound up getting dragged into teaming up with the imposter.
Surprising the protagonist, the freckled boy explains that he actually woke up in the exact same starting location as the fake brother Dopamine.
Seeing how polite and cooperative the boy is, the protagonist is pleasantly surprised by his helpful demeanor. Realizing the fake began impersonating him immediately upon arrival, the protagonist asks the boy why he chose to follow him around instead of simply joining the military. The freckled boy sighs wearily, confessing that he absolutely did not want to return to military service, making the protagonist realize he must be a veteran from his past life. Despite his gentle personality, the protagonist notes his impressive physical build, understanding why the imposter wanted to keep such a reliable shield by his side. Testing the waters, the protagonist asks if he holds any resentment toward the real dopamine addict, since the leaked walkthrough addresses cost so many players to suffer in this world. To the protagonist's utter shock, the freckled boy smiles warmly and says that he is actually quite glad about the situation. Clenching his fist with intense passion, the freckled boy admits that getting the chance to play this game alongside his hero, Dopamine Addict, makes his heart race with excitement. Blushing furiously, he fanboys and declares that Dopamine Addict is his ultimate idol, leaving the protagonist sweating as he realizes this guy is completely unhinged in his own way. He continues with starry eyes, stating that since Dopamine Addict is an all-zone clearer, there is absolutely no reason not to follow him to the ends of the earth, leaving the protagonist completely speechless. Turning serious, the freckled boy advises the protagonist that if he wants to survive the apocalypse, he had better fall in line and do exactly as brother Dopamine commands. Finding the fanboy's personality highly amusing, the protagonist decides to ask him one final question. He leans down and asks him directly if he is indeed a completely loyal supporter of Dopamine Addict. Freckled boy nervously but firmly confirms his absolute loyalty. With a knowing smirk, the protagonist tells the confused boy that he has officially passed his test. Before the freckled boy can ask for clarification, the heavy double doors of the room are suddenly thrown open with a loud slam. A stern man with a dark eye patch and a white military cloak strides into the room, demanding to see the person who claims to know him. This is none other than Commander Hayden Goodman himself. Immediately, a glowing blue system window chimes to life, announcing that the powerful title effect Friend of Luna Moon has successfully been applied to the newly arrived commander. The protagonist stands calmly as Commander Hayden Goodman enters, and the freckled boy watches in awe, murmuring "Commander" under his breath. A glowing system window chimes to life, declaring that because he possesses Luna Moon's ring, the title effect is doubled, leaving the protagonist pleasantly surprised. The commander turns his head to look directly at the protagonist, who stands ready, while the imposter Safe Zone 8 watches in shock, noticing a specific crest on the commander's shoulder. To everyone's surprise, the powerful commander kneels down in front of the young protagonist, showing immense respect. Looking up at the protagonist with his eye-patched gaze, the commander is deeply affected by the ring's doubled effect, wondering if the boy's appearance makes him look like Luna Moon himself. Watching the commander kneel, the fake Dopamine Addict sweats nervously, frantically wondering what is going on with the heavy atmosphere in the room. The imposter Safe Zone 8 raises his voice and demands to know why the protagonist is showing a ring, reminding him that he was supposed to provide testimony for his father. Hearing his loud shout, the protagonist calmly prepares to show the ring to the commander. The protagonist reaches into his pocket and reveals a silver ring on his palm, introducing it to Commander Hayden as his mother's keepsake. Seeing the old ring in the protagonist's hand, the commander gasps in shock, while the imposter Safe Zone 8 looks on in confusion, wondering what that old ring is supposed to mean. Commander Hayden turns around with a dark, threatening aura and calls the imposter Hayden, reminding him that he claimed to be his son, yet the ring of his beloved is in someone else's hands. With an icy, terrifying glare, Commander Goodman points out that his beloved's ring is held by the protagonist, exposing Safe Zone 8's lie. Safe Zone 8 panics completely, pointing at the protagonist and screaming in denial, insisting that the ring was stolen from him and that the dog tags were supposed to be the actual proof. Commander Hayden Goodman silences the screaming imposter with a single cold look, telling him to shut his mouth. Turning his back, the commander delivers a chilling warning, telling Safe Zone 8 that if he continues to deceive him, he will not spare his life, even if he is just a child. Seeing the strategy fall apart, the freckled boy is deeply panicked, crying out to Safe Zone 8 as the imposter stands frozen, sweating and trembling because the walkthrough guide explicitly mentioned the dog tags. Safe Zone 8 is stunned by the unexpected turn of events, sweating profusely as he turns his gaze toward the protagonist and desperately wonders who he really is. Terrified and desperate, Safe Zone 8 shouts at the protagonist, demanding to know who the hell he is, while the protagonist coolly asks him who he thinks he is. Suddenly, a blue system notification appears announcing that player Safe Zone 8 has failed the strategy, leaving him in absolute despair as he realizes the protagonist's true identity. Another system warning chimes, declaring that the player who failed the strategy is being eliminated, and Safe Zone 8 collapses to the floor right in front of the commander and the protagonist. A system message reveals that ownership of Safe Zone 8's items, including Luna Moon's ring and Luna Moon's dog tags, is being transferred to the protagonist, who is shocked by the sudden transfer. Commander Goodman barks orders to the guards to carry the unconscious boy to the infirmary immediately, while a system text box notes that there is only one case where another user's items are transferred in a safe zone. The system reveals that items are transferred when a PK is successful, prompting the protagonist to wonder if failing a strategy in this world means actual death. The protagonist silently reflects on the grim reality of this survival world, wondering if dying in this game sends players back to their original reality, while the freckled boy stands in the background, sobbing for his fallen companion. The freckled boy leans against the wall, weeping over Safe Zone 8's sudden collapse, while the protagonist steps forward and calmly tells him to calm down. The protagonist looks at the tearful boy and flatly explains that the collapsed imposter wasn't actually his brother. Reminding the freckled boy of his previous fanboy message to the user Taejong Taesei Beyonce, thanking him for posting great strategies, the protagonist walks closer. The protagonist gazes at the boy with a knowing look, asking how he could claim to be his biggest fan and yet fail to recognize him. In a dramatic reveal under a blue, shattered sky effect, the protagonist declares that he is indeed the real dopamine addict. The freckled boy gasps in absolute shock, asking if he is truly his idol, while the protagonist points out that since the boy hasn't unlocked his system yet, he wouldn't have been able to verify his identity. The protagonist displays a system window showing Safe Zone 8's profile, explaining that while the other players cannot see system information yet, he has the unique ability to inspect other players' data. The freckled boy stares in awe, tears still in his eyes, as he looks at his ultimate idol standing right before him. The protagonist stands confidently, explaining that he is indeed the legendary all-zone clearer that the boy admired. The title screen of the manhwa appears, boldly displaying the title, "The Apocalypse Needs a Pro." Overwhelmed with regret, the freckled boy bows deeply and tearfully apologizes to his idol for his past ignorance. The boy holds his head in disbelief, remembering his earlier boasting, and realizes that the real dopamine addict would never have failed a strategy so easily. Sparkles fill the air as the freckled fanboy looks up at his hero with starry eyes, ecstatic that he is indeed the real dopamine addict, while the protagonist's sweat drops and tells him to keep his voice down because he wants to keep his identity a secret. The protagonist explains that in this harsh world, not every player he encounters is going to be friendly toward him. He tells the cooperative boy that from now on he should address him by his character's name, Hayden Goodman, the commander's son. The protagonist promises to help the boy survive in this zone if he cooperates, and the freckled boy enthusiastically nods, promising to do his absolute best. The protagonist specifies that his help includes keeping the boy from being drafted into the military, which makes the freckled veteran extremely happy and eager to serve him. The protagonist reflects on his situation, noting that while the difficulty of the cola zone is relatively low, there is only so much he can accomplish in the body of a 10-year-old child. He clenches his fist in his pocket, realizing that considering the dangerous players in other zones, it is crucial to gather as many reliable allies as possible. A system notification appears on his palm, announcing that he has successfully unlocked a new main quest, Secrets of the Apocalypse. An illustration of a cosmic meteor and a bottle of safe area cola containing a glowing ring appears, with a system box explaining that each zone contains exactly one meteorite item. The protagonist floats in a blue digital space as a system message confirms that by obtaining the meteorite item, he has taken a step closer to the secrets of the apocalypse. The system partially unlocks for him, and the protagonist realizes that obtaining the meteorite ring is what triggered his system to unlock. Images of various sealed boxes with beast crests appear, representing other meteorite items, as the protagonist realizes that the more meteorite items he collects from other zones, the closer he will get to uncovering the secrets of the apocalypse. The protagonist looks back at the freckled boy, thinking to himself that while he originally thought he only needed to stop the apocalypse, he must now cover its hidden secrets as well. With a determined smile, the protagonist concludes that this survival reality is indeed vastly different from the game he used to play. The protagonist turns to the freckled boy and instructs him to tell the commander, once he returns, that the imposter Safe Zone 8 had tricked them both. The protagonist explains to the freckled boy that since he was with the fake son, the commander will definitely suspect him, and promises to introduce him to another player once they safely escape. The protagonist reveals that his helper's username is Room Corner Hubby, which immediately rings a bell with the freckled boy, who remembers him as the player with the foul mouth. The protagonist advises the boy to play along when they meet him later, and the freckled boy enthusiastically agrees, addressing him respectfully as Hyungnim. The freckled boy hesitates for a moment before preparing to ask another question. He mentions that he believes the player named T-Bastard was possessed as well. The protagonist is surprised and asks how he knows that, and the freckled boy explains that heavy users began disappearing right after the convenience store's location was posted. In a flashback, the freckled boy describes how curious users flocked to the convenience store after the post, admitting that he was one of them. The flashback shows the boy entering the store where he met someone, exchanged usernames, and found out the player was indeed T-Bastard. T-Bastard is shown purchasing a kitchen knife, explaining that he wanted to try out the newly posted knife zone strategy. The freckled boy recalls that T-Bastard bought the knife and checked out, commenting on it being a hidden zone. The protagonist realizes that if T-Bastard's destination was the knife zone, that must have been his starting zone. An ominous red screen declares that T-Bastard unfortunately landed in the absolute worst starting location. The protagonist sweat drops, silently defending himself by thinking that he only shared the store's location with Home Protector. The protagonist asks if the freckled boy also saw T-Bastard get struck on the head and still get possessed, but the boy is completely confused by the mention of a hit. The freckled boy reenacts the scene, explaining that the convenience store clerk bashed his head with a barcode scanner and that he got possessed right on his way out. The protagonist asks in surprise if the freckled boy did not get hit, and the boy confirms that he didn't. In a flashback panel, the clerk is shown fiercely raising his arm to strike T-Bastard, making the freckled boy wonder why the clerk singled him out. The protagonist sighs and reminds the freckled boy to keep his instructions in mind, making sure to claim he was completely tricked if anyone questions him. A transition panel shows the heavy doors starting to creak open as a text box notes that the most important moment has arrived. A guard enters and announces that the commander is calling for the protagonist, who calmly prepares to go as the freckled boy watches nervously. An overhead shot reveals the grand dining room where Commander Goodman sits waiting at the head of an incredibly long table. The protagonist walks in, marveling at the power of his ring's doubled title effect, and politely apologizes to the commander for keeping him waiting. The commander explains that he sent the protagonist's companion back because he was unwell, while the protagonist is pleasantly surprised that a meal has been prepared. A flashback shows Commander Goodman desperately searching through a snowy path, lamenting that he spent years looking for him and Luna Moon, but could never find them. The protagonist lowers his head and states that his mother lived in the depths of the slums, leaving the commander stunned to hear Luna Moon was in such a place. The protagonist looks up and calmly reveals that the slums are where his mother's grave is located, shocking the commander. A close-up of a clenching hand highlights the sorrow as the protagonist softly concludes that she is already dead. Commander Goodman looks back with profound regret, saying he wants to make up for all those lost years because he failed his promise and caused him to lose his mother. In a large speech bubble, the commander makes a grand declaration, promising to make the boy his successor and leave him everything. The protagonist stares wide-eyed as a system window notes that this is the exact prompt that triggers upon successfully completing the illegitimate child strategy. Blue system window congratulates the protagonist on his success, unlocking the 3 reward strategy. The protagonist is pleased, knowing this is the crucial starting point to rising to the rank of commander. The protagonist visualizes his progress on a scale held by the commander, realizing he must succeed in this reward phase because his choices will determine if the commander truly makes him his successor. The protagonist sits silently at the table, carefully calculating his next steps. He looks up with a determined gaze, ready to maximize his success points. A system graphic illustrates that the commander's frequent visits to the grave and his attention to the slums will naturally boost the protagonist's successor points. Commander Goodman closes his eye and promises that he will surely visit her grave now that he knows where she rests. A system chime confirms that the first of the 3 rewards has successfully been secured. The protagonist looks down thoughtfully, noting that there are now 2 rewards remaining. Commander Goodman silently observes the protagonist's dirty and bruised hands as he holds a napkin. The commander speaks up, signaling the start of their meal. He declares that they should eat, presenting a lavish spread of baked potatoes, cornbread, fresh salad, and high-quality steak. The protagonist is astonished by the food, recognizing that real meat, potatoes, and fresh vegetables are extremely rare luxury items in this survival world. The commander warmly invites him to eat as much as he likes, and the protagonist politely accepts, saying the meal is more than enough. Meanwhile, in another room, the panicked freckled boy is kneeling and repeatedly bowing, desperately apologizing to a guard who has absolutely no idea why the boy is pleading. The protagonist takes a bite of the delicious cornbread, enjoying the rare luxury of a proper meal. Suddenly, a bright blue magical light begins to glow around the protagonist's hand as he holds the piece of food. The protagonist stares in complete shock at his empty palm, realizing with panic that the food has suddenly vanished before he could even finish eating it. Commander Goodman suddenly stands up and points in shock at the protagonist's hand, demanding to know what is happening, while the protagonist internally panics, wondering if his secret has been exposed. A Scanlation Group's transition screen invites readers to continue following the series on their official website. Commander Goodman tightly grabs the protagonist's hand and raises it high, sweating profusely as he intensely declares that his eyes weren't deceiving him, leaving the protagonist completely bewildered. Looking closely at his hands, the protagonist is astonished to find that the cuts and scrapes on his child-sized palm have completely vanished.
He stares in disbelief at his flawless skin, questioning how his wounds could have disappeared so suddenly without a trace. Looking back at his clean hand on the dining table, he recalls the painful bruises he had just moments ago, confirming that they really are gone. He realizes that just like the cornbread he ate earlier, the food didn't just vanish. It was instantly absorbed into his body to heal his wounds, acting exactly like a health-restoring item in a video game. He begins to reflect on his situation, noting that things have felt incredibly strange ever since he first entered this world. He looks back on his journey, realizing that from the moment he possessed this young boy's body, the rules of reality seem to change. He realizes that game mechanics are actively at play, meaning his body no longer feels typical hunger, and consuming items like cornbread restores exactly 10 health points to his HP bar. With digital data swirling around him, he contemplates how these game systems are being applied directly to reality, allowing him to heal his physical injuries almost instantly. He smiles subtly, deducing that since this auto-healing mechanic wasn't listed under his unique perk as an all-zone clearer, it must be a common benefit shared by all possessed players. In a playful chibi scene, the protagonist holds up his fork and cookie, inviting the freckled boy to come over and cooperate. He turns his attention back to the dining room, wondering how he can explain his mother's background to the commander without raising suspicion. As the protagonist starts to hesitantly address him, Commander Goodman gently cuts him off, telling him that he doesn't need to say another word. The commander reveals that Luna Moon also possessed a healing ability, a shocking piece of information that catches the protagonist completely off guard. Commander Goodman explains that countless imposters have approached him over the years, all claiming to be his long-lost child. He clasps the protagonist's small hand, adding with a solemn look that every single one of those past claimants was lying. A quiet moment falls over the dining room as the reflection in a teacup reveals a memory of Luna Moon standing with her back turned. Sitting in silence at the long dining table, the protagonist quietly whispers to himself that something feels very off about this story. He ponders over the commander's words, deeply confused because Luna Moon was supposed to be nothing more than a fictional character in the game. In his mind's eye, a mysterious woman with dark hair stands silently in a hallway, her back turned to him as questions mount about her true identity. Although he is relieved that his cover remains intact, he realizes that this revelation has left him with many more secrets to investigate. He questions the significance of the moonstone ring they shared as a token of love, visualizing the commander embracing a dark-haired woman. He wonders about the truth behind Luna Moon's alleged healing abilities, picturing her looking back with a gentle smile in her uniform. He wishes he could simply ask the commander how his mother used her abilities, but fears that probing too deeply would instantly arouse suspicion. Breaking the heavy silence, the protagonist politely addresses the commander across the spacious dining room. The commander rests his chin on his hands, gently closing his eyes as he gives the boy permission to speak. The protagonist confidently asks if he can be allowed to have a monthly meal with other children his age. The commander is surprised by the unusual request, prompting the protagonist to explain that many children outside are shivering and suffering from cold and hunger. The protagonist humbly explains that since he was fortunate enough to receive such a luxurious feast, he wants to do everything in his power to help those in need. Internally, the protagonist calculates his true motive. Since only players can absorb food instantly while NPCs eat normally, hosting a meal will allow him to easily identify hidden players. He imagines meeting other players like Taijong Taizé or Room Corner Hubby at the dining table, realizing it will be much easier to manage and recruit them as allies. He knows that building trust with these children is a massive win-win scenario, though it all hinges on whether the commander approves his request. Commander Goodman sits in silence, resting his hand on his chin as he carefully weighs the young boy's proposal. Taking a slow sip of his warm tea, the protagonist understands the commander's hesitation, knowing his request could easily be interpreted as a political move toward welfare. He watches the commander's thoughtful expression, preparing his next tactic in case the requested meals are deemed too costly. He decides that if straightforward logic doesn't work, employing a little bit of guilt tripping is the most effective way to sway the commander. Putting on a pitiful, weary expression in his dirt-smudged clothes, the protagonist quietly murmurs that he is perfectly fine with just water.
He smiles sheepishly and claims that back when he lived on the streets with nothing to eat, he survived by eating snow, reminding the commander of his harsh past. Gently setting down his teacup, the protagonist softly asks the commander to please consider his request just this once. Looking up with the most innocent, sparkling eyes he can muster, the protagonist delivers his ultimate blow by softly calling the commander Dad. The word strikes the commander like a bolt of lightning, leaving him completely frozen and deeply shaken by the sudden show of affection. The scene transitions from the open, cloudy sky down into the quiet, grand hallways of the commander's estate. Later that night, Commander Goodman stands by the bedside of the tucked-in protagonist, warmly wishing him a good night's sleep. Snuggled comfortably under the warm blankets, the protagonist looks up and calmly wishes the commander good night. Goodman lingers in the doorway for a moment, looking back with a soft, affectionate smile as he watches the boy. Looking out the window at the brilliant full moon, the commander softly remarks that Hayden must have many questions about why he couldn't protect his mother or why he married someone else. Gently brushing a stray hair from the sleeping boy's forehead, he sighs, realizing that the complex truth might be too difficult for a child of his age to comprehend. Leaning down closer, the commander tenderly promises that one day he will tell him absolutely everything he knows. The commander asks the protagonist to also share what he knows when that day comes, and the sleepy protagonist softly agrees. Hearing the boy's gentle response, a rare, genuine smile appears on the commander's face, satisfied with their growing bond. As the commander turns to walk away, his boots clicking softly on the floor, he stops for a brief moment to add one last thought. As Commander Goodman walks out of the bedroom, his parting words linger in the air. "I told you, you can call me Dad." Left alone in the quiet room, the protagonist lies in bed, staring up as he thinks to himself that calling him Dad really works. The protagonist runs his fingers through his hair, reflecting that while it will take time before he can actually think of the commander as his father, he should use the title whenever necessary. After all, he will need the commander to act as his shelter manager in the future. Suddenly, a blue system window flashes into existence in the dark room, announcing that with 2 or more players unlocking the system, the global chat function has been activated, leaving the protagonist completely shocked. Bolting upright in his bed, the protagonist stares at the glowing screen in disbelief, realizing with a start that another player has successfully unlocked the system. The system prompts him, asking if he would like to enter the public chat room, and noting that private messages are only available between mutual friends. The protagonist decides to enter, eager to confirm if obtaining a meteorite item is indeed the universal condition for unlocking the system. With a firm press of his finger, the protagonist taps the digital enter button to join the newly unlocked public chat room. 2 notifications flash on the screen as the players enter the public chat room. First, Dopamine Addict logs in, followed shortly after by a user named T-Bastard. A shiver runs down the protagonist's spine as he stares at the screen in pure shock, realizing that the second player to unlock the system is none other than T-Bastard. He recalls the information shared by Taejong Taezi, remembering that T-Bastard is currently located in the notorious Knife Zone, which means he has access to the unique meteorite items of that region. He contemplates the grim reality of that place, knowing that the meteorite items found within the Knife Zone are absolutely essential for executing the brutal Zone resident massacre strategy. He visualizes the horrifying environment of the Knife Zone, a lawless den of crazy psychopaths where the streets crawl with brutal killers and the weak are ruthlessly hunted down without mercy. Because of the zone's extreme danger, the strategy required to clear it is equally horrific, a complete and total massacre, requiring the player to eliminate all 1,000 residents of the zone. The protagonist crosses his arms, looking at the screen as he reflects that while a total massacre seems like an impossible task, there is actually a specific way to accomplish it. The secret lies in the Knife Zone's unique meteorite item, a powerful dagger. With this weapon in hand, even a mere child has the power to take down any opponent in a single lethal blow. However, having the weapon doesn't make the task easy. The protagonist remembers his own grueling past, recalling how he only barely succeeded in clearing the zone after being killed countless times. The protagonist is deeply impressed, pondering that T-Bastard not only managed to survive that hellish place, but has already gone as far as unlocking the system. Seeing T-Bastard's username pop up on the chat screen asking for Dopamine Addict, the protagonist smiles to himself, acknowledging that this person is definitely no ordinary player. He brainstorms his opening move, wondering whether he should ask T-Bastard if he unlocked the system by obtaining a meteorite item, or inquire about his current stage of progress in the game. The first messages are exchanged as T-Bastard asks if he is the dopamine addict he knows, and the protagonist replies in the affirmative. He tells himself to stay calm and handle the conversation carefully. The atmosphere instantly turns hostile as T-Bastard sends a chilling threat, declaring that he will find Dopamine Addict and kill him. The protagonist is left completely speechless, staring blankly at the screen.
He can only express his utter bewilderment at the sudden death threat, gasping in complete shock.
The scene transitions to the next morning, showing the snow-covered roofs of the estate under a clear, bright sky. The door to the bedroom creaks open as a guard in a clean white uniform enters, politely waking the protagonist and informing him that the director is currently looking for him. Now dressed in a matching crisp white military uniform, the protagonist stands by the large window, turning in surprise at the summons.
With a serious expression, the protagonist asks the guard where he needs to head to meet the director. As he walks, the protagonist reflects on the previous night, remembering how he had tried his absolute best to calm down the furious T-bastard in their chat.
In his messages, he had explained that he was not the one responsible for transmigrating him into this world, emphasizing that they are in the same boat. He knows that T-bastard is exceptionally skilled, and that his help is crucial for securing the Knife Zone's meteorite item. Despite his explanations, T-Bastard's wrath remained unyielding as he reiterated his promise to find and kill the protagonist if he survives. The protagonist's sweat drops, realizing that T-Bastard's grudge runs far deeper than he had initially anticipated. The protagonist sighs, understanding that T-Bastard is likely going through absolute hell in the Knife Zone right now, and notes that having a burning desire for revenge might actually be the motivation he needs to stay alive. In a strange turn of events, the protagonist had ended up sending a message telling T-Bastard that he is in the Cola Zone, mockingly telling him to survive so he can come and kill him, effectively cheering his enemy on just to keep him alive. Walking across the grand stone courtyard, the protagonist notes that T-Bastard hasn't replied since then, concluding that he must have his hands full surviving. Suddenly, a cold voice calls out from ahead, welcoming him. The protagonist stops in his tracks, his eyes widening as he sees a long, silver-haired figure standing with his back turned near an archery target range. The man turns around, adjusting his glasses to reveal a cold, analytical gaze. It is Director Mursaw Pendleton, the commander's adjutant, who dryly remarks that he met a fake Hatem yesterday and is now meeting another claimant today. Stunned by the cold reception, the protagonist internally grumbles about the man's arrogant attitude, recognizing him as Mursaw, the commander's highly competent adjutant. Aloud, he simply responds with a calm, "Yes, and?" The protagonist recalls that in the game, Mursaw was a brilliant strategist who was also extremely suspicious, often forcing players to poison him to make clearing the stage easier. Mursaw steps closer, warning the boy to show proper respect even if he is the commander's real son. Mursaw leans in, his expression cold as he reminds the protagonist that the commander's official wife is Lady Daphne, bluntly calling the boy nothing more than a bastard. Looking into Mursaw's eyes, the protagonist thinks to himself that the adjutant is just as insufferable as he was in the game. However, he resolves that he won't be killing him this time around. He recalls Mursaw's tragic backstory. He was an orphan and a former child soldier. Though highly sensitive and defensive, his extraordinary competence and intelligence eventually earned him his high position. Mursaw had always deeply yearned for the kind of warm, loving family passed down through generations, a luxury he never got to experience as he stood alone on the cold, harsh battlefields. The memory shifts to a moment in Mursaw's past, showing a cut on his hand as a gentle voice calls out, "Excuse me," drawing his attention. He had turned to find Daphne Goodman, the daughter of the previous commander, smiling warmly at him and offering her handkerchief. Seeing her kindness, Mursaw was completely spellbound. At first, Mursaw had tried to rationalize his pounding heart, convincing himself that his feelings were merely a result of his deep respect for her prestigious family. He dismissed his blooming affection as a foolish, vain dream, unable to gather the courage to admit that he had fallen deeply in love with the commander's noble daughter. To drown out his forbidden feelings, Mursaw threw himself entirely into his duties, burying himself under piles of military paperwork and research. By dedicating his life to his work, he sought to keep his feelings hidden while working tirelessly to protect the very place where Daphne lived. But Mursaw's quiet world was suddenly shattered when a certain man made a sudden and dramatic appearance in Daphne's life. That man was Hayden, who ended up marrying Daphne and even inherited the prestigious position of commander of the estate. However, after Mursaw became the commander's direct adjutant, he finally uncovered the painful truth behind the union. He discovered that their relationship was completely devoid of love. It was merely a marriage of convenience arranged for political benefit. Realizing that the woman he loved was trapped in a cold, loveless marriage, a deep, silent resentment began to fester within Mursaw's heart. A sharp call of "Commander" echoes through the tense air. Standing before the commander, Mursaw argues that if Lady Daphne were truly happy, he wouldn't have stepped in, bluntly stating, "But you do not love her, Commander." Merceau looks desperately at the commander, pleading, "I fully understand that your excellency is highly capable and that is why you hold this position, but I believe you should call off this marriage." With a calm, steady look, the commander with the eye patch responds, "Thank you for the compliment, but something is a bit strange." Looking at a framed military medal on the wall, the commander questions Merceau, asking why a brilliant talent recognized by the military like him is demanding a divorce from Daphne first instead of gunning for the commander's seat. The commander commands him to listen, openly admitting, "Listen, Merceau, as you said, Daphne and I do not love each other," leaving Merceau completely stunned. Closing his eye, the commander softly explains that he is simply waiting for the day he can finally reunite with his family. As a white dove flies freely through the blue sky, the commander adds that once he finds his child and passes down his position, Daphne will also be free. Dumbfounded, Merceau gasps, "What?" as the commander calmly shifts the topic to ask him one direct question. The commander poses a piercing question. "Do you love Daphne Goodman? You love Daphne Goodman, don't you?" shocking Merceau to his core. Merceau can only stammer out, "Excellency?" completely shocked that he was just asked the exact same question as in the game. Walking closer to him, the protagonist says, "Just as you said, I might just be a bastard, but that's why I think I understand what you want even better." The protagonist places a hand over his heart, looking at Merceau with absolute sincerity and determination in his eyes. The protagonist tells Merceau that he understands how he feels, while internally deciding to try a slightly different strategy this time around. With a burst of mental resolve, the protagonist vows to win Merceau over to his side. Standing alone before the massive, majestic military estate, the protagonist takes a deep breath under the vast blue sky. As he walks away, the protagonist looks up and wonders to himself, "Did I overdo the sympathizer act?" Behind him, Merceau bows deeply and apologizes, saying, "Please forgive my rudeness." The protagonist smiles slightly, thinking that since Merceau's reaction wasn't too bad, he can rest easy. Suddenly, with a bright flash of blue light, the system's hologram screen pops up right in front of the protagonist's eyes. With successive flashing alerts, several new players enter the public chat room. Dentist, ASAP Possible, I Don't Cry It's Cardio, and Junkie, leaving the protagonist utterly shocked. Staring at the glowing screen, the protagonist thinks to himself in shock, "I figured other players would start unlocking the system soon, but all at once like this?" As he wonders if that guy is here too, another notification flashes. Bard has entered the public chat room. Thinking about the main culprit behind this mass possession, the one T-bastard should truly resent, the protagonist smiles at the screen and types, "Welcome." The user Home Protector enthusiastically messages, "Oh, dopamine addict, you got possessed too?" prompting the protagonist to recognize his name. The screen displays Home Protector's message in large letters. "Oh, dopamine addict, you were possessed too?" Another user named God expresses their excitement, typing, "Dopamine addict? Is that really you? I'm such a huge fan." While Junkie adds, "What is this, a chat room? I thought I was the only one who got possessed." The protagonist walks across his spacious room, keeping his eyes glued to the glowing blue chat screen. As the protagonist plops down onto his bed, Home Protector types, "So everyone went to the convenience store after seeing the address I posted?" leading the protagonist to think, "This guy." The screen displays Home Protector's cheerful message, "It's so great to see everyone like this." The protagonist's sweat drops at the sheer optimism of the message, exasperatedly thinking he's living in absolute la-la land. The protagonist reflects on the grim future, knowing that once the second apocalypse begins, low difficulty zones will be easily overrun, making shelterization extremely difficult. He notes the players must eventually migrate from low difficulty zones to higher level zones, but most only focus on early survival and try to hold out in easy zones. Knowing that staying behind leads straight to annihilation, the protagonist types a message, "I am currently in the cola zone. To assess the situation, I'd like to know which zones you are all in." God quickly replies with a pink-themed shield, "I'm in the love zone." User SAS Possible follows up announcing, "I'm in the beer zone." I Don't Cry It's Cardio says, "I'm in the chicken zone," while Junkie hesitantly adds, I'm cocaine?" God laughs and asks, "Ha ha ha, did you buy cocaine at that convenience store?" To which Junkie deflatedly responds, "I thought it was just flour." As the protagonist sits on his bed, he comments that T-bastard's zone is knife, prompting shocked reactions. Knife from God? Isn't that a hidden zone from Home Protector? And my condolences from Cardio. Home Protector excitedly chimes in next, revealing, "I'm in the cigarette zone." The protagonist isn't surprised, thinking to himself, I expected as much from his tone, but he really did land in an easy zone. Staring at the screen, the protagonist sends a silent plea. "Don't you dare die, Home Protector, because you're someone I need to meet alive." Appreciating his nature, the protagonist thinks, well, at least I like his easygoing attitude, while Home Protector comments on T-Bastard's rough situation and asks where Dentist got possessed. Dentist suddenly sounds a note of suspicion, messaging, do you all actually believe that? Why isn't T-Bastard saying it himself? Dentist bluntly refuses to share his location, asking, how can I trust you enough to reveal my zone? Prompting the protagonist to observe, unlike this guy who's completely on edge. God quickly defends him, typing, Dentist, don't you know that Dopamine Addict is an all-zone clearer? You shouldn't miss the chance to exchange information with him. Did you only recently start in your safe zone? Are you a newbie? The protagonist rationally reminds himself that, in any case, they cannot contact people from other zones until the second apocalypse. The protagonist crosses his arms thoughtfully, thinking, so even if they reveal their zone, it shouldn't really be a problem. But since they're acting like this? Dentist's naive reply flashes on the screen. Safe zone? What is that? I'm a dentist. Confirming the protagonist's suspicion that they are just a total newbie. The other players immediately erupt in excitement at finding a beginner, leaving the protagonist amusedly thinking, look how excited these veterans are. The protagonist pieces it together, realizing Dentist must have gotten dragged in from the clinic next door, and concludes that since the remaining zones are Candy and Unicorn, there is no way an ordinary person could survive in the Unicorn zone. Looking at Dentist's avatar box on the glowing blue screen, the system concludes that Dentist's zone must be Candy, while Dentist's message pops up asking, what is a newbie? Protagonist stands speechless as chat bubbles from other players erupt in excitement around him, with SSAP Possible finding relief that Candy is an easy zone to chat in, while others laugh at the total beginner who doesn't even know what a newbie is. The protagonists type out a message thanking everyone for their responses and mentions he has one more question to ask, prompting God to quickly reply, what is it? The protagonist explains that he suspects the key requirement to unlocking the system is acquiring a meteorite item, asking if anyone else has one. God excitedly reveals having flower-shaped earrings made of meteorite, while Home Protector chimes in to say that must be why the system unlocked since he possesses a meteorite pistol. In the cosmic depth of the system's background, several items float as SSAP Possible shares that his submarine's power source is a meteorite, Cardio mentions owning a dumbbell made of meteorite, and Dentist adds that his leader once had him touch a mysterious stone that might have been a meteorite. Staring down thoughtfully, the protagonist reads Junkie's skeptical message asking if the system unlocking is truly related to meteorites. Junkie admits that he doesn't really have anything that could be considered an item, leaving the protagonist sitting on his bed in surprise as the system hologram glows brightly in front of him. The narrator notes that while some players definitely own a meteorite item, others have merely touched or brushed past one. A large system prompt summarizes the finding. That means the system can be unlocked just by coming into contact with it. The protagonist leans in close to the screen and asks the chat if they have run into other players in their respective zones. The chat log updates with responses. Home Protector hasn't seen anyone. God claims there are many who chose to serve him. Cardio shares that players in the Chicken Zone joined forces. Dentist hears about other players for the first time. And SAP Possible grimly notes there were a few in the Beer Zone, but now he is the only one left. The narrator explains that although other players still remain in the Chicken and Love Zones, only one person in each has successfully unlocked the system. The screen displays the symbol of a unicorn inside a shield, as the narrator reflects that there might be other system unlock conditions besides contact, wondering why the unicorn zone is the only one that hasn't unlocked the system yet. With a tired sigh, the protagonist collapses onto his bed, thinking to himself that it looks like he won't be getting any sleep tonight. With a bright blue flash, the protagonist sends one final message to the chat room. Dopamine Addict, I should get going. Message me if anything happens. I'll help. A clean white bubble pops up with a practical question. Aren't you going to fall asleep in class tomorrow? The scene shifts away from the virtual world to a grand, richly decorated corridor inside a luxurious military mansion. A battle-scarred executive officer representing the pro-Daphne faction speaks up with a harsh frown, asking, did you find the child of that deserter? Across the table, an executive from the pro-Hayden faction reacts with immediate indignation, defending her as a hero of the subjugation war. The pro-Daphne officer stands up and scoffs, asking if calling her a hero is a bit much for a woman who abandoned her post and ran away. The debate escalates into a shouting match across the table, with the pro-Hayden officers furiously demanding how they dare mock a woman who never set foot on the battlefield. A powerful fist slams onto the table with a resounding crash, followed by a cold, commanding voice declaring, "You've all gone senile." Anton, the stern, gray-haired leader of the pro-Daphne faction, commands the room, asking how they dare raise their voices in His Excellency's presence. Anton lowers his hand and speaks with a sharp, calculating gaze, stating that he is curious as well. Anton turns his head to look directly at the commander, demanding to know whether His Excellency considers that woman a deserter. Or a hero, Anton finishes. At the head of the long table, the eye patch-wearing commander sits in absolute, unbothered silence. The commander closes his eye with a subtle sigh and calmly suggests, "Perhaps my son can answer that." The commander commands the room to look towards the door as he prepares to introduce him, and the massive double doors creak open. As the young boy steps into the room, successive system alerts flash across the screen. The effect of the title, Friend of Luna Moon, is applied to the target. With the system buff applied, the commander proudly introduces the boy to the assembly. "My son, Haydam." Walking past the hostile stares of the elite guards, Haydam calmly observes that while he expected some resistance, he didn't expect it to be this bad. With steady, resonant footsteps, Haydam walks forward, thinking to himself that the situation is actually quite impressive. As Haydam approaches the head of the table, the narrator explains that this is the executive conference room, where all the top brass of the Cola Zone have gathered. The narrator breaks down the political divide. Half of the Cola Zone's top brass are pro-Daphne, while the other half consists of pro-Hayden executives who once fought alongside Luna Moon. Haydam calculates his next move. If he acknowledges Luna Moon's desertion, the pro-Hayden faction will lose trust in him, but if he calls her a hero, the pro-Daphne faction will refuse to follow his lead. Standing beneath a massive, glowing chandelier, Haydam begins to speak, telling them that whether they think of his mother as a deserter or a hero. Haydam looks at the executives with cold, unwavering eyes and asks, "Isn't the only thing that matters the fact that His Excellency is my father?" Knowing that a power struggle must be met with power, Haydam's bold words instantly provoke one of the pro-Daphne faction officers into a furious rage. The enraged officer slams his hands on the table and stands up, roaring, "How dare a bastard of unknown origin run his mouth?" The officer frantically commands the guards to grab the child at once, but his voice is suddenly cut short by a deafening gunshot as blood splatters across Haydam's face and clothes. The officer falls backward, clutching his chest in agony and looking up at the boy with absolute terror in his eyes. A gentle, concerned voice calls out through the tense silence of the room, "Are you all right, Master Haydam?" Merceau stands holding a smoking pistol, explaining that he acted without thinking because he feared the young master was going to get hurt. As a tense silence falls over the room, the commander watches quietly while Haydam looks down, wondering what their next move should be. Haydam gently adjusts his blood-stained collar and remarks with a sigh, "The clothes His Excellency gave me got dirty." Merceau slowly lowers his gun, his gaze remaining intensely focused and serious. The narrator notes that, in the end, the officer's meeting was cut short. Haydam stands calmly over the body of the fallen officer, while Anton looks on with a dark, calculating expression. Merceau observes the young master in shock, realizing that a man just died right in front of him, yet he didn't even bat an eye. As they walk down the grand hallway behind the commander, Merceau thinks to himself that although he knew the boy was clever, he never expected him to be this bold. Anton asks Merceau about his progress, saying, "I asked you to educate him over the past few days. What do you think of him?" Merceau looks back and thoughtfully responds, "I knew he was no ordinary person, but he far exceeded my expectations." Merceau and Haydam stand together in front of a giant conspiracy corkboard penned with blacked-out photos, newspaper clippings, and red connection strings. As Haydam studies the board, Merceau narrates, "Not only did he master formal etiquette, but he also memorized the Goodman family history and the military structure in an instant. He also listened closely to Daphne's story." Zooming in on Merceau's eyes behind his glasses, he continues, "His focus and memorization skills were incredible for his age, but what surprised me most was his marksmanship. I saw it with my own eyes, but I still couldn't believe it," Merceau recalls as he looks back in shock at a target with multiple bullseyes glowing with power. Staring at the young boy holding a gun, Merceau notes, his posture, breathing, composure, everything was as perfect as a seasoned veteran's. Haydam innocently turns to Merceau and asks, "Did I shoot it right?" leaving Merceau completely stunned as he thinks, and yet he said it was his first time holding a gun. A system status window displays Haydam's past credentials, a South Korean military veteran equipped with the Magic Marksman title, as Chibi Haydam thinks to himself, "Though it's a first for this body." Merceau walks towards the target in the training field, reasoning, "With the basics down, anyone can hit a target." "But your marksmanship? I can only describe it as a natural gift," Merceau praises, looking at the perfect cluster of bullet holes dead center in the bullseye. Merceau explains the gravity of the situation. "As you know, to protect our zone, marksmanship is crucial, because until you hit the core, Monsters won't die, Merceau warns, recalling the terrifying blue wolf monster roaring with a glowing blue teardrop core on its chest. Pushing up his glasses with a confident smile, Merceau asserts, "That is why I believe Master Hatem is absolutely necessary for the subjugation war." Merceau suddenly breaks out in a nervous sweat, frantically questioning himself, "What on earth am I saying to His Excellency's son?" Standing in front of him, Hatem calmly responds, "Is that so?" Anton looks down thoughtfully, thinking to himself, "Just as I thought." He resembles her, Anton reflects, as the memory of a solemn, dark-haired woman appears on the screen. A transition screen filled with blue light and sparkling crystal shards represents the shift in time. The title card proudly flashes, "The Apocalypse Needs a Pro." The scene shifts to an overhead view of snow-covered barracks as a cold winter breeze blows through the courtyard. A soldier's voice whispers, "Hey, did you hear? Someone died at the officers' meeting yesterday." The rumors spread through the base as soldiers whisper, "They say Director Merceau shot Lieutenant General Bottom." Another asks in shock, "What? A mutiny? Won't he face severe punishment then?" Another soldier chimes in, "No, they say Lieutenant General Bottom crossed the line with Hatem first." "What? Well, that changes things," the other responds as they watch Hatem walk past. The soldier continues, "But you won't believe how Hatem reacted," while Merceau walks ahead, listening silently. In a dramatic reenactment of the incident, the soldier explains, "A man died right in front of him, and he was only worried about his clothes." Hatem is shown looking startled on the floor, covered in blood splatters, claiming, "I'm sorry, I was just so startled." The gossiping soldiers conclude he's a total psychopath, but then again, maybe not. I heard he's going to have a meal with the child soldiers once a month. Isn't he just doing that to win them over? Either way, he's definitely not normal. Back in the private room, Merceau finishes explaining, "And those are the rumors about you currently spreading through the zone." "Master Hatem," Merceau addresses him as Hatem stands with his back turned, looking out the grand window at the falling snow. Hatem turns around with a sweat drop and a deadpan expression, remarking, "Hearing it like that makes me sound like a real psychopath." Chibi versions of them comment on the situation, with Merceau arguing, "Well, it's not entirely wrong, complaining about your clothes while even the officers were panicking." Hatem counters, "The one who suddenly pulled out a gun and shot him is weirder." Stepping forward, Hatem says, "Since we're on the subject, let me ask you something. Shooting that man, you did it on purpose, didn't you?" Hatem asks with a knowing smile, causing Merceau to instantly flinch. Quickly adjusting his glasses to hide his surprise, Merceau maintains his composure and says, "I have no idea what you mean." Hatem smiles knowingly and thinks, "It's simple." Hayden must have wanted to kill those who insulted Luna Moon, Hatem reasons, visualizing the bloody aftermath of the officers' meeting. But as the commander of a zone, he couldn't easily take sides, Hatem calculates, visualizing a balanced scale of justice representing Hayden's political neutrality. But then his real son appeared, Hatem thinks, as the scale begins to tip heavily to one side. Hatem deduces his father's terrifying silent message to the assembly. "Anyone who insults my son will pay with their life." Most likely, His Excellency made a deal with you beforehand, that you could kill anyone who was rude to me, Hatem says, looking at a folded, blood-stained white shirt on his bed. Looking out the window again, Hatem adds, "Normally everyone would have been gossiping about the new bastard for a while, but your mutiny helped bury the noise to some extent." Merceau gazes back with an intense testing look and responds, "That's a good theory, but I am also a member of the pro-Daphne faction. Aren't you trusting me too much?" Hatem looks back at Merceau and acknowledges, "Of course, I'm Luna Moon's son, so I must be a thorn in the side of the pro-Daphne faction. But I'm also His Excellency's son, and I made a promise to you," Hatem declares with unwavering conviction. "That I will become Commander Hayden's successor," Hatem proclaims, standing tall beside Merceau. "And set Lady Daphne free," Hatem promises, as a vision of the beautiful white-haired Lady Daphne looking hopeful flashes before Merceau's eyes. A silent pause fills the room as Merceau stands tall, looking down at the small but formidable young master standing in front of him. Looking at Hatem with deep respect, Merceau admits, "I thought this in the meeting room too, but you have excellent political instincts." Clearing his throat, Merceau changes the subject. "By the way, I heard that once a month you host a banquet for the child soldiers? Look at you getting shy," Merceau teases silently. Merceau asks, "Do you have a specific plan?" prompting Hatem to smile triumphantly to himself, thinking, "To think Merceau is showing interest in my plans first." Hatem looks at Merceau with a gentle smile, noticing his softening demeanor, and remarks, "You've grown a bit warmer toward me. I'm thinking of preparing the banquet food myself." He understands that building mutual trust early on is the most efficient way to maximize their collective cooperation. Merceau instantly analyzes the strategic value of the idea, whispering, "Cooking, a classic way to win people's hearts." Haidam observes his sharp thinking, pleased that Merceau recognizes how a calculated gesture can optimize troop morale and loyalty. Haidam's tactical objective is clear as he calculates the most effective form of influence. What I need right now isn't obedience, but respect. True respect is far more durable and productive for long-term survival than mere forced compliance. The child soldiers whisper doubts among themselves, questioning if they should follow someone of a different class who has only lived in comfort. Their skepticism proves a vital truth. A relationship forced by constraint never lasts. To secure their peak efficiency in future battles, their voluntary devotion must be earned. As a glowing red vortex of energy ignites, Haidam prepares to execute his long-term plan, thinking, so starting now. Standing tall before the young soldiers, Haidam visualizes the high-utility outcome of his leadership. So when the end times come, they will follow my orders without hesitation. A unified command structure is absolutely essential to minimize future casualties. Intrigued by the young master's ambition, Merceau looks at him intently and asks, so? As Merceau considers the practical tasks involved, whether choosing the menu or helping with kitchen duty, is caught off guard by Haidam's high-efficiency choice for food procurement, hunting. Merceau's face drops in sheer disbelief, breaking into a nervous sweat as he gasps, "Excuse me?" Brimming with confidence and a calculated desire to test his own capabilities, Haidam firmly declares, let's start with hunting. The duo ventures out into the frozen, snow-covered forest outside the safe zone, their footsteps leaving deep tracks as they search for valuable resources. Merceau, ever focused on risk mitigation, looks highly anxious as he holds his rifle, stating, going outside the zone with just a single gun? As Merceau frantically calls out to warn him of the danger, Haidam remains completely unbothered, calmly responding, Merceau, quiet down, it's just hunting, what's the big deal? He knows that overreacting to minor risks only drains valuable energy. Merceau trundles through the deep snow, explaining that his primary concern is protecting Haidam from harm. Haidam looks back with a smug, knowing expression, teasing, are you worried about me? Merceau's anxiety stems from a very real, high-stakes threat, because His Excellency will kill me. He vividly imagines the terrifying wrath of Commander Haydn demanding, how dare you let my son get hurt? Looking up at the barren, snow-laden trees under the gray sky, the narrator reflects on the calculated risk of their expedition. But no matter how much I think about it, Haidam explains his rational approach to winning over the soldiers. Don't you think a dish shows more sincerity if you gather the ingredients yourself? I'm planning to prepare the banquet food myself. Sincerity is a high-yield investment for securing genuine loyalty. Merceau closes his eyes and sighs, admitting, I completely agree with that, but... Flaring up in a comical panic, Merceau rants about the severe operational risks. If you have no shooting experience, isn't this your first time hunting too? If an accident happens while you're trying to be sincere, I'm the one who has to take all the blame. Haidam casually relies on his high-status leverage, stating, I'm His Excellency's son. A little hunting is nothing. This only drives Merceau to scream in frustration. Stop using that excuse. Walking effortlessly ahead, Haidam reassures his guardian, I've hunted things I could catch without a gun before. If you're that scared of monsters, you can hide behind me. Looking back at Merceau, Haidam reflects on the true utility of having a companion. Honestly, hunting alone is much easier, but the reason I brought this nag along is... Haidam's calculated move is revealed, so that later, when I subjugate monsters, I'll have Merceau's testimony. Having an esteemed witness verify his strength maximizes his political credibility and influence. Suddenly, an adorable antlered rabbit appears in a snow clearing. Haidam quietly notes, it's an antlered rabbit. That size is perfect for hunting. As Merceau prepares to take the shot, Haidam stops him and says, that's not my prey. Merceau is utterly confused, wondering, not your prey? Then what on earth? In a shocking, calculated trade-off, Haidam slices his own hand with a sharp knife to draw blood. Merceau gasps in absolute horror. Master Haidam? As red blood drops onto the white snow, Haidam calmly leads the way, whispering, quiet, you'll scare the monsters away. Merceau follows in a panic sweat, crying, but the blood! Walking into the deep, dark thicket of the snowy forest, Haidam senses their target approaching and whispers, it's coming. A heavy, dark hoof stomps into the snow, rustling the bushes as Merceau gasps. Huh? What is... A massive, terrifying boar-like beast with sharp tusks and a glowing blue core on its forehead emerges from the shadows. Merceau is paralyzed with fear, exclaiming, a hippopig? Merceau panics at the highly dangerous situation, shouting, hippopigs rarely appear where humans are. Why is it here? It might be a dangerous specimen, Master Haidam. Haidam remains entirely composed, instructing, calm down.
A holographic system window displays the target's profile. Hippo pig medium, class monster. Characteristics, keen sense of smell, mainly hunts small monsters. The data confirms they only prey on small beasts like the antlered rabbit and rarely confront stronger opponents.
As the massive beast glares down at them, Mersal realizes the brilliant strategy. So spilling the blood earlier was to lure it out. But couldn't you have just set a trap using the antlered rabbit? Standing his ground, Hayden explains his optimal tactical choice. It has a keen sense of smell. If I had shot the rabbit, the smell of gunpowder would have scared it off. More importantly, Mersal stepped back.
A system prompt flashes with bright blue light, confirming the activation of his peak combat utility. Activating title, Magic Marksman.
The massive, cautious hippo pig leaps forward in a ferocious attack, fully baited by the scent of blood as the narration notes, and with one of us injured, even the most cautious beast would attack.
With absolute focus on the monster's glowing core, Hayden aims his rifle and commands with perfect composure, "Come at me."
A short time later, Mersal stands in silence, sweating and deeply analyzing the incredible display of marksmanship he just witnessed, muttering, Standing triumphantly over the massive, defeated beast, Hayden lowers his smoking rifle and casually asks, "Is this enough?" proving his incredible combat efficiency.
The scene shifts to the banquet courtyard, where a group of young, hesitant child soldiers arrive, looking nervous and highly skeptical of what lies ahead. Beautiful plates of sizzling, perfectly grilled meat and fresh greens cover the tables as Hayden welcomes his guests. "Thank you all for accepting my invitation. There isn't much prepared."
Wearing an apron and serving 2 large plates of delicious high-calorie food, Hayden smiles warmly and says, "But we have plenty of pork bellies, so eat without worry." Providing high-quality nourishment is the perfect way to build strong, loyal allies. Hayden looks at the children with a bright, welcoming smile, establishing a solid foundation for their future cooperation. "I look forward to working with you all." The atmosphere completely changes as the young soldiers eagerly devour the feast, laughing, chatting, and thoroughly enjoying the massive boost to their morale and well-being. The golden-haired boy named Room Corner Hubby looks thoroughly annoyed as he grills more meat, grumbling, "No shit, unlike us, he can actually taste things." Looking down at him, Hayden chuckles, "You haven't changed a bit," while Room Corner Hubby points with his tongs, complaining, "I've grilled a few pieces over here. Aren't those done?" Suddenly, an energetic, red-haired boy bows deeply and shouts, "Greetings, bros!" startling Room Corner Hubby, who yelps, "Geez, you scared me."
The red-haired boy, identified as Taejong Taesei Byonk, looks up with sparkling starry eyes and asks, "Room Corner Hubby bro, can I call you my second big brother? I've heard so much about you." Room Corner Hubby explodes in anger, shouting, "Who said you could call me bro? Hey, T-bastard, why didn't you make this guy enlist?" While Taejong Taesei Beyond sweat drops, defending himself. Our situations are completely different. In a cute chibi panel, Hayden grins as he clarifies their military status. He's a veteran and you're unenlisted. Before teasing Room Corner Hubby, "Do you even know how to handle a gun now?" Taejong Taesei Beyonce brightly asks Room Corner Hubby, "But surely you know how to hold a gun," while Room Corner Hubby stands silently, completely clueless about weapons. Annoyed at being called a veteran, Room Corner Hubby yells, "Watch your mouth, you bastard! Do you want to spread rumors that I'm a player?" While Taejong Taesei Beyonce quickly apologizes. Stepping in to calm them down, the dark-haired boy suggests they share their progress, asking Taejong to go first, who eagerly agrees. Taejong shares that he is working as a servant at the commander's residence, noting that the senior staff are quite nice to him because of his young age. When asked if he had overheard any crucial intelligence, Taejong gets a serious look and, sweating, admits that he actually did. He begins to reveal the gossip, starting with the name of Lieutenant General Radu. Taejong reveals that Lieutenant General Radu is having an affair, leaving his companions sweat-dropping in utter disbelief at the useless gossip. Taejong then turns to Room Corner Hubby, asking if he has found anything related to the upcoming subjugation war. Room Corner Hubby seriously reveals he heard they might get drafted for the next subjugation war, which immediately sends Taejong into a panic. The dark-haired boy calculates that since the subjugation war usually begins after the snow melts, they still have some time to prepare. When asked if he discovered anything else, Room Corner Hubby holds up his cooking tongs and prepares to show them something important first. Room Corner Hubby presents a necklace with a ring attached to it, instructing both of them to touch the item to see if they can unlock their systems. After touching the ring, Room Corner Hubby sighs in disappointment, realizing it does not work for them. The dark-haired boy explains that he unlocked his system recently, adding that most players seem to activate theirs by coming into contact with a specific key item. Hearing this, Taejong and Room Corner Hubby stare at him in complete shock and disbelief.
Room corner hubby panics and shouts in frustration, wondering how people with no special atoms are supposed to unlock theirs, while the dark-haired boy tells him to calm down. He reassures them that the system interface only provides a character profile, inventory, and chat anyway, with the chat being the only somewhat useful tool. He notes that there are currently a total of 8 active players participating in the public chat room. This confirms to him that there are other players currently surviving in different zones as well. As he contemplates this, he visualizes the shadowy figures of other players scattered throughout this dangerous world. Room corner hubby begins to ask a question, trailing off as he thinks. Taejong suddenly wonders where the player named Dopamine Addict ended up, unaware that the dark-haired boy standing right next to him is actually Dopamine Addict. The dark-haired boy replies that everyone is keeping their identities quiet, while secretly planning to reveal himself later to make them owe him a favor. Room corner hubby scoffs, saying there's no way that rude jerk would have shared his location anyway, prompting the dark-haired boy to recall that he was actually the first to speak in the chat. Taejong asks if they are the only players in the cola zone, noting how enthusiastically everyone is eating the feast. Looking at the sizzling pork belly on the grill, the dark-haired boy confirms that they are likely the only players in this zone. He pauses, looking thoughtful as he prepares to share a crucial hypothesis. He quietly reveals his suspicion. Luna Moon might have been a player. Room corner hubby is completely shocked by this theory, shouting, "Luna Moon might have been a player?" The dark-haired boy explains that since everyone says he looks like Luna Moon, she was likely Asian just like them, and that Hatem also shares a resemblance. He adds that she was known as the hero of the Subjugation War, which catches Room corner hubby's attention immediately. Room corner hubby points out that Hero of the Subjugation War sounds like a player-exclusive title, as he has never heard of an NPC with such a title. The dark-haired boy states that the most decisive clue lies in her unique abilities. He reveals that Luna Moon reportedly possessed a healing ability, just like they do. An image of Commander Hayden sitting solemnly with his hands clasped is shown, hinting at deep secrets. The narrator reflects that there seems to be a complex history and story about this world that they have yet to discover. The dark-haired boy flashes a creepy, enthusiastic grin, asking if they are excited for the brutal campaign that awaits them. Room corner hubby and Taejong are terrified by his unsettling smile, crying out in fear while the dark-haired boy silently judges them. Walking away, the dark-haired boy notes that Luna Moon's identity isn't the only mystery as he reaches into his collar to check something. He pulls out a hidden necklace holding a ring, which is identified as the ring that Luna Moon once owned. He recalls that in the game, the ring was considered a completely ordinary, useless item. However, in this world, a secret was added, as holding it applies the Friend of Luna Moon title effect to the target. He remembers that when Commander Hayden was near him, the ring would grow noticeably warm. But as soon as the commander walked away, the ring would quickly grow cold again. It felt almost as if the ring itself was sad to see the commander leave. He reflects that the Friend of Luna Moon title is one that is specifically designed to affect NPCs. He begins to connect the clues, wondering what this unusual warmth implies. He ponders if an NPC's conscious ego or spirit is actually dwelling inside the ring itself. Looking down thoughtfully, he wonders whose consciousness could possibly be trapped inside it. Taejong looks up at the sunset-lit sky, asking if the world really isn't exactly like the game they used to play. Slamming his hand down in frustration, Room corner hubby questions the value of their plans, asking, "Doesn't that mean our strategies are useless?" The dark-haired boy remains calm, strategically asserting, "No, the strategies still work. I told you, players who fail the campaign will die." Room corner hubby wonders if only Luna Moon's settings changed, which the dark-haired boy notes makes things even stranger. Taejong soberly points out that if Luna Moon really was a player, it means someone was transported to this world before them. Reaching out toward a bottle of safe cola, they're left with a chilling, unanswered question about their predecessors. What happened to them? Room corner hubby feels crushed under the heavy burden of their reality, overwhelmed by the brutal campaign difficulty, the mystery of an NPC who might be a player, and other players running wild. Exasperated, Room corner hubby shouts that his head is about to explode, suggesting they just focus on the primary goal of stopping the apocalypse, prompting the dark-haired boy to silently dismiss him as a simple-minded idiot. Clarifying his strategic focus, the dark-haired boy explains that he is merely raising awareness, confirming that their immediate objective is to participate in the subjugation war. Participating in the first subjugation war is a highly efficient move, as simply surviving the ordeal guarantees them a valuable title. A beautifully wrapped pink gift box stands as a visual representation of the potential rewards and system bonuses awaiting those who succeed. Room corner hubby nervously suggests that Taejong go in his place, which Taejong eagerly accepts. Meanwhile, the dark-haired boy strategically decides that he must prevent the younger boy from participating to minimize risk. To mitigate existential risk, it is vital to preserve resources. If something goes wrong with the primary players in the first subjugation war, at least one player must remain behind to clean up the mess.
Despite the calculated risks, the dark-haired boy harbors a sharp, confident determination, silently resolving that he has absolutely no intention of going down easily.
Standing inside the spacious room corner hubby asks if they could have simply discussed this outside, wondering if they were brought here just to see his quarters, to which the host replies that there is a practical purpose. A hand sets down a silver fork with a soft metallic click, preparing the tools for their next training exercise. Room corner hubby and Taejong stare in utter confusion at the tray of cookies and pastries, completely baffled by the presence of the accompanying forks. The dark-haired boy pulls out a chair and instructs them to take a seat, announcing that they will begin practicing how to eat, leaving room corner hubby entirely dumbfounded. He explains that his independent experiments revealed a highly efficient mechanic, focusing entirely on the act of eating significantly increases recovery speed. Room corner hubby counters that they could just use their hands, questioning the utility of the fork. A dark, bloody aura fills the space behind room corner hubby as a terrible realization of what the fork is actually for begins to dawn on him. With chilling composure, the dark-haired boy states that they require a wound to test the recovery speed, prompting room corner hubby to scream in absolute horror at his teammates' extreme methods. As the dark-haired boy casually explains that their system perks allow food to be absorbed automatically without needing to chew, room corner hubby recoils in terror, convinced he is dealing with a complete sociopath. Demonstrating the method, the dark-haired boy takes a deliberate bite of a cookie, explaining how focusing intensely on the sensation triggers the system's healing function. As predicted, a soothing blue light wraps around his wounded hand, demonstrating the rapid acceleration of his recovery speed through optimized food consumption. Looking out over the cold, snowy mountains surrounding the town, they recognize the value of using their remaining time efficiently by training their core recovery abilities before the war begins. The dark-haired boy holds up his fork and commands, "Now stab me," as a terrifying jigsaw-like shadow looms behind him, sending room corner hubby into a hysterical panic. Room corner hubby adamantly refuses to participate in the self-harm practice, claiming he has already fully mastered his recovery ability, which instantly piques the dark-haired boy's strategic curiosity. Room corner hubby reaches out toward the box of pastries, preparing to demonstrate his own unique mastery of the healing system. As he picks up the cookie, it immediately begins to radiate with a powerful, concentrated blue aura, showcasing a remarkably unique technique.
Taejong is thoroughly amazed by the display and eagerly asks how he figured it out, prompting room corner hubby to explain his backstory.
Sharing his past, room corner hubby explains that because he was constantly sickly, he spent most of his time receiving nutrition through alternative means rather than eating. By channeling the familiar sensation of receiving fluids from an IV drip, he was able to instinctively replicate that external absorption process with the food. Room corner hubby proudly boasts about his superior efficiency, pointing out that even if his arm is broken, he can initiate healing simply by coming into physical contact with food. The dark-haired boy calmly acknowledges the utility of the skill, calling it not bad, which catches the proud blonde boy slightly off guard. The dark-haired boy immediately plans to optimize this ability, suggesting that if they all get injured, room corner hubby can heal first and then act as a designated provider to feed the rest of the team. Realizing that his unique skill has just been calculated into a demanding team support role, room corner hubby is filled with a deep sense of dread. With the team roles optimized for maximum survival efficiency, the dark-haired boy smiles and officially designates him as the group's healer. Late at night, the dark-haired boy reflects on their productive day, wondering how best to train Taejong next, when his quiet contemplation is interrupted by a sudden notification chime. A cascade of blue system prompt windows suddenly appears, presenting multiple friend requests from other surviving players, leaving him surprised by the sudden influx of social connection. Recalling that establishing friend connections unlocks a direct one-on-one chat feature, he strategically decides to accept Home Protector first to gather information. As soon as he accepts, a message from Home Protector pops up asking what took him so long, leaving him highly impressed by their near-instant response time. The chat reveals a blunt exchange, with Dopamine Addict demanding efficiency, while Home Protector attempts to clear up past misunderstandings regarding a convenience store incident. Home Protector asks if he is planning to travel to the Unicorn Zone later, a piece of information that immediately catches him off guard. A system trade request pops up as Home Protector offers 12 cigarettes, revealing a highly valuable trade feature between players in different zones. Realizing that friend connections unlock cross-zone item trades, he immediately accepts, pleased to see the items safely transferred to his digital inventory. Home Protector candidly admits to wanting to leverage his strength, offering the items as an advance payment to secure a spot when he takes over the Unicorn Zone. Recognizing the immense strategic value of building a network of external allies to maximize their collective survival chances, he agrees to consider the offer, earning enthusiastic thanks. Before going to sleep, he begins plotting how to fully exploit this newly discovered trading mechanic to optimize his resource accumulation. As he prepares to rest, another sudden, brilliant blue light flashes from his system screen on the floor, catching his attention once again. He is stunned to see an incoming friend request from T-Bastard, a player whose identity immediately sparks his curiosity. The system screen glows brightly as it displays the pending friend request from T-Bastard, presenting him with a critical decision. Upon accepting the request, the one-on-one chat room is initiated, with Dopamine Addict opening the conversation with a sharp, direct question. Finally feel like talking? T-Bastard looks down at his system screen in disbelief, muttering, "Dopamine Addict?" A blood-red window bears his dark, resentful final thought. "I should have taken you down before I died." Under the cool glow of a monitor, a hand rapidly types away at a computer keyboard. Holding a lit cigarette in his mouth, he casually asks his companion what nickname he should use for the game. His junior suggests, "How about T-Bastard?" A capital T with bastard after it. It's a popular slang word these days. He turns in his gaming chair, taking the suggestion in stride and officially registering the name T-Bastard. He recounts that after retiring from his organization, he started playing a game called Apocalypse Safe Zone on his junior's recommendation. Smoking a cigarette at his desk, he notes that the game felt incredibly real compared to his boring daily life, though the sudden second apocalypse and cross-zone battles caught him off guard. He remembers getting angry at the endless game over screens because having no easy path felt just like his own life, but his stubborn pride kept him playing. A pair of gloved hands picks up a heavy, dark gas mask, preparing for a dangerous zone. A bright system notification appears on his screen, confirming that the chicken zone has been successfully cleared. Feeling a rush of accomplishment, T-Bastard smiles and notes that clearing the candy, cola, cigarette, beer, and chicken zones was easy, and he was finally starting to have fun. He explains that the real trouble began in the cocaine zone, since it wasn't a multiplayer game. Highly advanced AIs that learned players' strategy data would spawn to survive instead. The cocaine zone was dominated by a specific AI, Dopamine Addict, who utterly destroyed T-Bastard time and time again. Frustrated, T-Bastard realized that most players who cleared the zones were simply copying Dopamine Addict's strategies, making him desperately want to land a blow on the guy. While burning with determination, he notices that Dopamine Addict posted a hidden safe zone guide for the knife zone, leaving him stunned. He realizes he cannot afford to stand by and be amazed. He has to move faster than anyone else. He plots that if he becomes the second person to clear the knife zone, his AI will be matched against Dopamine Addict's AI, giving him a chance to finally land a blow. Looking at his clock showing midnight, he grumbles about the insane requirement of having to see the ending of every zone just to unlock the knife zone. By the time he finally unlocked the knife zone, Dopamine Addict had already completely vanished from the internet, leaving only a post about a convenience store. T-Bastard stands near a window staring at his phone, realizing that the only thing Dopamine Addict left behind was the address of a mysterious convenience store. He concludes that everyone who visited that address must have disappeared, just as a strange ringing sound fills the air. He takes a look around the empty, dimly lit convenience store, noticing how quiet and eerie it feels. Inside the store, he spots a red-haired boy with freckles picking up a beverage, identifying him as the player Taejong Taesei Byung. Recognizing the boy, T-Bastard asks if he's the retired national athlete and if he is also a safe zone player. The red-haired boy awkwardly confirms his in-game name, admitting that he is one of Dopamine Addict's loyal devotees. After a brief conversation, T-Bastard picks up a knife and takes it to the counter, choosing it simply to prepare for any unexpected situations. The convenience store part-timer looks at him suspiciously, asking if he's really choosing the knife and warning him to think it through. T-Bastard firmly tells the clerk to just ring him up, prompting the clerk to let him have it for free since he's the first customer to choose it. As T-Bastard walks away wondering where all the missing people went, the part-timer glares at him with a hidden malicious sneer, calling him a dumbass. Suddenly, T-Bastard's foot stops in its tracks as he senses something is terribly wrong. A brilliant pillar of blue light suddenly erupts beneath his feet, causing him to shout in surprise. As his consciousness fades into the light, he realizes that this strange event was his very last memory of reality. When he opens his eyes again, he is horrified to find himself trapped inside the body of a 10-year-old child. He looks up to find himself surrounded by menacing figures in gas masks, realizing he is dropped directly into the brutal knife zone where children are treated as tender meat. While being tortured by the psychopaths, he recalls Dopamine Addict's strategy guide, which advised players to feign death and launch a surprise attack to steal the meteorite knife from the boss. Thanks to the guide, the young boy manages to steal the meteorite knife and run for his life, gasping for breath as he flees. However, the severe injuries he sustained while securing the knife leave him clutching his bloody side in agony. Slumped against a wall, he realizes there is no normal food to heal himself in this zone, as the crazed residents only survive by eating human flesh. He sends a direct message to Dopamine Addict stating that he refuses to resort to cannibalism even if it's just a game, and accepts that he will likely die. Exhausted and near death, T-Bastard sighs, wondering what Dopamine Addict would do in his place and cursing him for not replying. Just as he prepares for the end, a system chime rings out with an unexpected item trade request from Dopamine Addict, offering him 15 cookies. Dopamine Addict messages back, teasingly saying he felt bad that T-Bastard would die without enjoying the game, prompting a furious response from T-Bastard. Back in the present, the dark-haired boy explains that his guide was merely a warning, and that it should be impossible for a 10-year-old to wipe out the residents of that zone. He points out that despite acting completely indifferent, T-Bastard must have studied his guide very carefully. Smiling to himself, the dark-haired boy chuckles at how much T-Bastard must detest him, receiving a message calling him the absolute worst. The dark-haired boy looks amused, thinking that T-Bastard still has plenty of energy to get mad, and silently wishing for him to survive, even if it's out of spite. A sharp tactical knife lies forgotten on the cold ground as a crunching sound echoes nearby. The scene transitions to a quiet night under a full moon shining over steep cliffs, with a system window reading, "Safe Zone Love." The wind rustles through the air, carrying a soft, mystical energy across the silent landscape. A beautiful female shaman dressed in traditional white and red garments stands bathed in a cool, celestial blue light as hooded followers in purple robes look on from behind. Manson, what does God say? God says he gave him a revelation, but he ignored it. The mysterious female shaman, revealed to be named God in this world, turns back with a gentle yet knowing smile. He still hasn't accepted my friend request. Does he think he's already gotten all the information he needs from us? But the feeling is mutual, Mr. Dopamine Addict. She reasons that if Dopamine Addict had possessed a body in his main base, the Unicorn Zone, none of them would have stood a chance, but fortunately, he is currently in the Cola Zone. And this is the Love Zone, where I can unleash my abilities to the fullest. She reflects on her past life as a fake shaman who never underwent a spirit initiation, but she prides herself on knowing exactly how to sway people's hearts. In this mysterious game world, the essential requirement to clear the Love Zone is love. Fortunately, I succeeded in getting my hands on the meteorite item first. By disguising the contents of my status window as a divine revelation, I won the love of the other players, though some still worry about whether Mr. Dopamine Addict will help. Don't be foolish. Even without Mr. Dopamine Addict, you still have me, the one who can hear the voice of God. She remains confident, believing that Dopamine Addict will surely not leave the other players completely alone. Now listen closely, everyone. In 10 years, the messenger of God will descend and punish the infidels. Spread this rumor to everyone in this zone, especially since those holding meteorite items will be in even greater danger. God gives the hardest trials to his most cherished children. Even if we are pointed at as a crazy cult right now, once the second apocalypse begins in 10 years, everyone in the Love Zone will bow down at our feet. This game won't be so easy, Mr. Dopamine Addict. Ready. Go! Taejung, were you an athlete? You're great at anything physical. Well, I did play sports for a bit, but you're much more impressive, brother. Did you do sports before you transmigrated? Like shooting, maybe? No way, I was just an unemployed bum. An unemployed bum with that kind of skill? You really are destined for greatness, brother. Go run 10 more laps around the field. What? Actually make it 20. Wait, brother? First of all, titles don't boost your physical stats. Ultimately, if I don't train, I won't get any stronger. Panting heavily as he runs, he laments that he is currently stuck inside the weak body of a normal 10-year-old child. Looking over his impressive list of titles gained as all zone clearer perks, he notes that they only increase NPC favorability or skill proficiency, having absolutely no effect on his actual physical stats. If that's the case, he wonders how he was able to display such incredible marksmanship earlier. The secret lies in a title called Magic Marksman, which guarantees that the first 6 shots will never miss when equipped, but carries a hidden risk. With this powerful title equipped, he is capable of hitting absolutely any target without fail. I understand. Please provide the text and I will begin. Remember, accuracy within the first 6 shots is key. He recalls the trial required to obtain the Marksman title, which involved hitting the bullseye on a demonic target board. The seventh bullet carries a devastating curse that forces it to hit the person who is most precious to the shooter. Come to think of it.
I fired 3 shots at the targets and 1 at the hippo pig, so I only have 2 safe shots left.
If I ever fire that 7th shot, it will hit Commander Hayden, who has the highest favorability rating with me right now. I must absolutely avoid using it, ideally not using it at all. If only I hadn't run into Mirso. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have wasted shots on those targets. If the commander gets shot later, it's completely your fault, Mirso. Brother, did you not hear me calling you? What are you thinking about so deeply?
Ah, I was listening. You're obviously lying. I'll say it again then.
Longer workouts tend to be less efficient, so how about we use interval training to shorten the time but increase the intensity? Spoken like a true athlete. I'd love to do some dietary management too, but I guess that's hard here.
Ah, right. Huh? What is it? Aside from physical training, there is another key mechanic to restore health in this survival game.
Rocks didn't get absorbed, but I want to test how spoiled food works.
Yeah, we're under disciplinary confinement anyway, so we've got nothing else to do.
Military rations? After finishing his morning training and experimenting with different foods, he discovers that meat works better than cookies, and compressed foods like canned goods or jerky provide an even better recovery effect than plain meat. For highly compressed, portable food, nothing beats military rations. Do you have any leftover military rations I could have? Even spoiled ones are fine. The heavy wooden door opens with a creak, catching the young dark-haired boy off guard. Merceau looks at the boy and says, I'm not sure why you're suddenly looking for military rations, but I have something to check there as well. Would you like to go to the research lab with me? The young boy looks down thoughtfully, wondering what Merceau has to check at the research lab. Its official name is the Zone Security Research Institute. It's where they develop general military supplies, excluding weapons, such as military rations and uniforms. Merceau holds up a speech bubble that says, This is jerky, one of our military rations. It's made from monster meat. Merceau gestures to 3 pieces of dark red dried meat on a metal tray, offering, We happen to have some left, so please give it a try. The dark-haired boy inspects the tray and thinks to himself, It's bulkier than I thought. The young boy brings a piece of the monster jerky to his mouth to take a bite. As he chews on the tough jerky, his face goes completely blank as he realizes it tastes like combat boots that haven't been washed in years. Merceau looks at the boy suspiciously and asks, You haven't actually eaten those, have you? Sweat dropping, the boy lies, Of course not. I was just repeating the game's script. Suddenly, a door creaks open as an excited voice shouts, The young master is visiting? A sweaty, bald researcher in a white coat clutches his papers tightly and asks, Did you really come to see our military rations? A caption identifies him as the Research Institute director. Walking with them, the passionate director exclaims, It hasn't even been 100 years since the food shortage right after the apocalypse. We might suffer from a food shortage once again. The director flings his arms back dramatically, scattering papers as he yells, So we must prepare for the apocalypse starting now, but research on food is always at a standstill. Merceau whispers to the young boy, Old folks who lived through the apocalypse are often like that. To which the boy simply replies, The young boy bends down to help pick up the scattered papers, agreeing, I think you're right, director. Startled, the director asks, Young master? Smiling warmly, the boy hands the papers back and says, It's always been my dream to eat proper meals too. If it means no one has to starve in the future, I will support you, director. Deeply moved, the director exclaims, I heard that you gathered children your age and treated them to food, but I had no idea you had such deep intentions. And one more thing. The boy holds up a piece of the jerky and asks, I don't want my friends to starve during the subjugation war, so we need military rations that are smaller and lighter than this. Is that possible? The director explains, Our lab possesses high-level freeze-drying technology, but no one has ever asked us to improve military rations. Holding the jerky, the director looks determined and tells him, Just trust me.
With absolute loyalty, the director vows, I will never disappoint you, young master. The boy smiles with satisfaction, thinking, Good.
A quest window flashes on the screen with the objective, Produce the ultimate military rations. The director bows politely outside the Zone Security Research Institute building as the boys make their exit.
As they walk, Merceau asks, What is your real purpose for developing military rations? Catching the boy completely off guard.
Merceau continues, Through the 2 boys you called to your room, were you checking on the condition of the child soldiers? Remembering the interaction with the quiet child soldier, the boy thinks, He acted like he didn't care, but he definitely has spies watching me. Looking at the boys' boots as they walk, Merceau thinks to himself, Aside from the commander and Lady Daphne, I thought all other humans were fools. Looking at the young boy, Merceau continues, But to think a mere 10-year-old boy makes me feel like far in the future, you will become my superior. The young boy glances back with his wide, dark eyes. The boy smiles and thinks, for a Daphne obsessive fan, he's saying some surprisingly admirable things. Trying to line up behind me already? Aloud, he teases, pardon? Which annoys Mersal. At a checkpoint, a guard holding a barrier staff tells them, we're conducting an inspection. The guard explains, unlike other places, you must pass through a checkpoint when leaving the research lab. To ensure no research materials are smuggled out, please step forward. The guard says, I will conduct a quick body search. Looking closely at the guard, the boy realizes this guy's the son of Lieutenant General Bottom, who died a few days ago. A flashback shows the Lieutenant General bleeding from a chest wound. Mersal bows his head politely and says, I'm sorry about your father. The guard replies, no, it's fine. I'm the one who should apologize for making a scene back then. The inspection is complete. You may go. Walking away, the boy reflects. He is the son of Lieutenant General Bottom, whom I shot a few days ago. Mersal says to him, to put your mind at ease, even if just a little. Mersal reveals, Bottom abandoned that boy as soon as he was born, yet he still shed tears for him as a father. The young boy replies, still, it's a relief. Muso asks, what is? Mersal explains, I was ordered to eliminate him if he seemed to hold a grudge against you, young master, but after checking, it doesn't seem like he does. The boy sweat drops, thinking, so that's what you were checking. He really doesn't miss a thing. Looking at a passing soldier who ignores him, the boy notes, come to think of it, since that incident, everyone has been completely silent, pretending not to see me when we cross paths. Observing the executives, the boy plans, I need to find out what the executives think of me right now. That's the only way to separate allies from enemies. A panel shows a closed curtain with the narration, if they keep hiding like this. The boy smiles mischievously under the moonlight, thinking, maybe I should pay them a home visit. In a grand meeting hall, the executives gather around a long table. One asks, did you all see it? The mid-sized monster that kid brought in? Another replies, of course we did. An executive from the pro-Daphne faction says, even if His Excellency wanted to make his son look good, what was he thinking giving such a task to a 10-year-old? Another executive asks, do you really think His Excellency ordered it? Can't you tell by the fact that Director Mersal was with him? A different voice argues, I disagree. That kid is young, but there's something deeply unsettling about him. The executive points out, a person died right in front of him and he didn't even blink. A gray-bearded man sits in silence. General Anton, leader of the pro-Daphne faction, asserts, isn't it a fact that he's a threat to Lady Daphne? General Anton asks, has Lady Daphne said anything? Another executive answers, she's been quiet. A hand taps the table rhythmically as a voice concludes, she must be thinking about what to do with that kid. Lady Daphne surely knows that boy is no ordinary child. Not only is he winning over the pro-Hayden faction, but he's also securing his position by feeding kids his age. General Anton suspects his motives, wondering, do you really think he's doing all this just for recognition? Is that really all there is to it? Anton narrows his eyes, convinced that the young boy must be aiming for something much higher. Suddenly, the heavy wooden door of the meeting room creaks open. An executive remarks, oh my, gathering without even telling us? As representatives of the pro-Hayden faction arrive? Walking in, one of them looks at the quiet, tense table and asks, why is everyone so quiet? Were you discussing something we shouldn't hear? General Anton calmly replies, we were just talking about young Master Hayden. His hunting skills are quite impressive. Pulling out a chair to sit, another executive smiles and says, aren't they? He continues, I'm already looking forward to the subjugation war with him. If His Excellency permits, there's so much to teach him, which immediately alarms General Anton. Smiling subtly, General Anton catches on and thinks, so that's what you were planning. Anton speaks up, asserting, how could you think of putting such a young child in a subjugation war? I don't know what you're plotting, but I won't let things go your way. A pro-Hayden member retorts, exactly! This is why warmongers are hopeless. Angered, another bangs his foot down and yells, what? Warmongers? After we protected this zone, you can't even say thank you? Suddenly, the door bursts open with a slam as a panicked messenger gasps, we have an emergency. The messenger delivers the shocking news. Young Master Haydam has climbed over the wall of Lady Daphne's residence, leaving the executives utterly speechless. Back in his room, the boy had contemplated his plan, thinking, calling them separately is too much trouble. How can I see the executives from both sides at once? He knew that directly targeting Lady Daphne would cause both factions to panic, shouting, what are you trying to do to Lady Daphne? And warning him of the danger of acting so recklessly. Reflecting on his entrance, he notes, Actually, I didn't plan on climbing the wall from the start, but since all my requests to meet Lady Daphne were rejected, I had to resort to these hardline measures. A close-up of the young boy's dark, focused eye highlights his absolute determination. With a gentle click-clack of her heels, Lady Daphne, a beautiful woman with glowing white hair and purple eyes, descends the grand staircase. A futuristic holographic game window suddenly flashes before the boy's eyes, displaying her profile, Mursal's wife on a merry bad ending route with Hayden, equipped with purple eyes of charm. It also notes that because she uses a different system version, friend requests are unavailable. Sweating in surprise, the boy greets her with a quiet hello, while thinking in shock, I thought she was an NPC, but she's a player? Looking at her status window, the boy is baffled. Her nickname is ridiculous, but her route is Merry Bad Ending Hayden? I've never heard of this route in my life. Observing her calm response, he thinks, seeing how she isn't surprised, she probably can't see my info. Could she be a player from an old version? Standing in the center of the grand hall, Lady Daphne asks, why are you staring at me like that? To which the boy quickly replies, I'm sorry. The boy then states, it's a habit I picked up from Luna Moon, my mother, which visibly shocks Lady Daphne. He continues, I know it was rude of me to come here like this, but I wanted to deliver my mother's last words. Could we speak in private? Startled by his audacity, the maids exclaim, what are you talking about? Leave this instant. Standing firm, Lady Daphne raises her voice to stop them, saying, I'd like to speak with this child alone. Lady Daphne brings the boy into a sunlit, elegant parlor to talk in private. With a gentle motion, she begins pouring hot tea into a cup for him. Looking down, she asks softly, so what did Luna Moon want to tell me? Sitting beside her, the boy analyzes the situation, thinking the pro-Daphne faction was entirely hostile toward Luna Moon, but Daphne doesn't seem hostile at all. Watching her tightly clench her hands, he notes, if anything, she seems to feel guilt. He understands her distress, reflecting, I suppose that makes sense. Luna Moon was Hayden's lover, but since she ended up marrying him, she must have a heavy heart. The boy begins, my mother, while secretly plotting, I only came here to stir up the high-ranking officials. Aloud, he delivers his fabricated message, said she forgives you, while silently thinking, but I might get some unexpected information out of this. Daphne clutches her dress in distress, thinking in disbelief, that's a lie. There's no way she forgave me so easily. In her mind, she agonizes. Even if it was just to clear the game, I still stole the man she loved, which makes the boy's eyes widen as he catches the phrase, clear the game? The realization hits the boy like a lightning bolt. Daphne and Luna Moon knew each other, and Daphne is a player from another version. That means Luna Moon was also a player from another version. Keeping his cool, the boy says, my mother said if Lady Daphne didn't believe her, I should tell you this. He leans in slightly and adds, she said you'd tell me the truth then, making Daphne visibly anxious. The boy utters the secret phrase, Mursal's wife, causing Lady Daphne to freeze as her face flushes bright red in sheer embarrassment and shock. Mortified, Daphne covers her face and stammers, wait, I'll tell you everything, while the deadpan boy thinks, I don't blame her for being embarrassed. Mursal's wife, what is she, an elementary schooler? I'll have to be careful when choosing my nickname in the future. Looking down at her teacup, Daphne sighs, I don't even know where to begin. She starts her confession. Actually, Luna Moon and I aren't from this world. One day we suddenly woke up inside a game. I know it's hard to believe, but it's the truth, she adds. The boy, practicing how to swallow as he pretends to drink his tea, calmly thinks, of course I believe you. The boy's thoughts trace the game's chronology, pondering, what I want to know is which version of Safe Zone we're in. He recalls, Safe Zone is a game with a long history. It started as a pixel game and released a new series in 2026. Now the series exists on both console and online. Glancing at her, he notes, the one I played was the latest version. He identifies the key mystery, thinking, if the game Daphne got sucked into isn't the same version as mine, then her entire perspective and knowledge of the world might be completely different. Mursal wonders if there might be other players from different versions out there. He asks Lady Daphne, what kind of game were you playing when that happened? Lady Daphne blushes and replies, well, you probably wouldn't know it even if I told you. Looking highly skeptical, the young boy thinks to himself, is Safe Zone an embarrassing game to talk about? The boy sighs, I guess it can't be helped. I think about what my mother tried to tell me in the slums every day, but if you don't want to say... He then begins to cough weakly, instantly making Daphne look extremely uncomfortable and filled with guilt. Lady Daphne hesitatingly begins, it's a D, to which the confused boy repeats, a D? From a top-down view of the elegant parlor, Lady Daphne confesses a dating sim for handsome middle-aged men, leaving the boy utterly speechless as he asks in disbelief, "Pardon?" while she turns bright red with embarrassment. In a dramatic flashback with a pink floral background, Merceau is completely shocked to hear the urgent news. Young Master Haydam is in Lady Daphne's residence? Title screen? The apocalypse needs a pro. Lady Daphne looks down with a solemn expression and says, "You probably don't know what this means, Haydam, so I'll explain it as clearly as I can." A game title screen appears over a snowy mansion backdrop, Middle-Aged Man Dating Simulation. Daphne explains, "That's the name in the game I played." She continues, "It featured handsome, middle-aged men and was a dating sim set in an apocalyptic military. A screenshot of the old game interface shows a handsome target named Hayden Goodman with a black bar over his eyes and a dialogue option asking, 'Hey, are you okay?'
She narrates, "I fell for one of the characters and played it every day, but I could never end up with him because he was just an unconquerable extra." A memory shows her in her past life as a young woman staring at her computer screen, which displays Merceau wearing glasses. In the flashback, a hand reaches out to offer a clean white handkerchief, with Daphne saying, please use this." A full-body view of the memory shows Lady Daphne in a beautiful gown offering the handkerchief to Merceau, who stands in his dirtied military uniform. Merceau looks surprised and tells her, "Your handkerchief might get dirty," while Lady Daphne stares up at him with a heavily blushing, mesmerized face. Back in the parlor, the boy listens closely to her story, thinking, "In that case?" Lady Daphne looks to the side and confirms, "Yes, that's right." The boy looks up in wonder at Lady Daphne as she smiles warmly down at him, illuminated by the bright sunlight of the parlor. The boy's thoughts trace her confession. "So when you said you did it to clear the game?" Sitting across from her at the elegant tea table, the boy asks directly, "Was it your marriage to the commander?" Lady Daphne closes her eyes in deep sorrow and admits, "Yes, I had no choice." A flashback shows Daphne kneeling on the floor as a glowing system screen appears before her with a quest warning. "Die if you don't reach an ending within a year. Quest, marry an NPC." She recalls, "That was the quest I received when I possessed this body." She explains, "At the time, the only targets here were the commander and Hayden," as she remembers Hayden wearing an eye patch alongside the commander. Clutching her hands together in despair, Daphne explains, "And since I possessed the commander's daughter, I had no choice but to choose Hayden." The boy looks at her with a calm, understanding expression, thinking, "So that's what happened." As he lifts his teacup, the boy analyzes the situation, thinking, "But aside from a few minor differences, the characters and setting were identical to the safe zone. I always thought I was trapped inside a game. But maybe someone made a game based on this world instead." Narrows his eyes in deep thought, he muses, "Of course, it's just a theory, but one thing is certain. The bastard who dragged us here is a drama-loving psychopath." The boy thinks about the cruel quest rules and asserts, "I like a good rush too, but I don't drag innocent people into it." With a determined and cold look on his face, the boy vows silently, "If I ever find out who did this..." Lady Daphne breaks the silence, speaking softly, "I've had so many regrets." She looks down in deep sorrow, admitting, "I only wanted to stay by Merceau's side a little longer, but my greed ruined every relationship I had." Daphne lies in despair, thinking back to her desperate state. "I don't care if I die, just help me avoid marrying Hayden." She narrates, "I tried to fix everything." But the next day, Luna Moon vanished over a panel of the dark, silent balcony of the grand estate. Clutching her arms tightly, Daphne says, "And I was left all alone in this mansion. That's why I couldn't easily believe it, that Luna Moon had forgiven me." The boy looks at his own calm reflection in the surface of his tea, thinking, "I wouldn't have forgiven her easily either, but something is a bit strange." He begins to piece together the inconsistencies. Daphne had already told Luna Moon that she wouldn't marry Hayden, right? Then why did Luna Moon leave? She could have just stayed and married Hayden herself. A memory shows a cloaked figure walking away through a heavy snowstorm. A close-up of the boy's dark, sharp eye highlights his deep suspicion. He ponders, or despite her appearance, Daphne is someone who survived at the heart of this warlord faction for 10 years. She might be lying. He sets his teacup back down onto the saucer with a soft click, concluding, but whether she's telling the truth or used the pro-Daphne faction to drive Luna Moon out, it doesn't matter either way. Why? A title card flashes with her embarrassing game username, Mersaul's wife. The boy thinks with a mischievous smirk, "She won't attack me as long as Merceau is on my side." Cartoon chibis depict a joyful Daphne, an annoyed Merceau, and the boy playing a trumpet.
Looking up at her, the boy says, "Lady Daphne." The boy smiles and declares, "I will help you divorce my father." Lady Daphne freezes in complete shock and stammers, "A divorce? What do you mean all of a sudden?" As the boy casually replies, "Of course." The boy gives her a reassuring smile, while Lady Daphne's purple eyes widen in absolute disbelief. Looking at him with newfound hope and urgency, Lady Daphne asks, "What do I need to do?" The boy plots his next move, thinking, if Daphne takes my side, helping her get a divorce will be easy. After all, I still have one of the 3 rewards left. He chuckles to himself, thinking, I look forward to seeing how the pro-Daphne faction reacts. They must be in complete chaos by now. Whatever the case, as he imagines the panicked, angry expressions of the pro-Daphne executives. Lady Daphne concludes her thoughts, saying, "So when the time comes, I will tell you everything I know." A close-up of the commander, Hayden Goodman, looking down with a gentle expression and his eye patch visible, softly placing his hand on the dark hair of young Hayden. The commander might know Luna Moon's true identity. Hayden's hand grips the door handle firmly as he resolves in his mind, so I must act carefully from now on, because I must be Luna Moon's child, not a player. As bright light floods in through the doorway, Hayden determines to keep playing his part until I have this zone in the palm of my hand. Merceau, wearing glasses and looking highly agitated, bursts out, "Lord Hayden," while the young boy turns back with a deadpan face, wondering. Staring up at Merceau, the young boy thinks to himself, "Is this the handsome, middle-aged man?" As Merceau asks in confusion, "What?" Merceau shouts in outrage, "What on earth do you think you're doing?" as he stands in the hallway confronting Hayden alongside several other military personnel. But Merceau continues yelling, barging into Lady Daphne's residence and even kicking out the servants, as a hand points accusingly at 3 distressed maids standing outside. An older military officer demands angrily, "Just how urgent was your business to commit such rudeness? I demand to know." While Haidam calmly and teasingly replies, "My, you seem very angry." With a subtle smirk on his face, Hayden thinks, "Well, if you want to know that badly." Looking directly at Merceau, Hayden declares, "I swore on my mother's name to help His Excellency Hayden and Lady Daphne get a divorce. I am just on my way out after making that promise." Merceau and the other officer stand completely frozen in shock, stammering, "What did you just say? A divorce? And what is the meaning of this?" Merceau stomps forward anxiously, shouting, "What were you thinking, doing such a thing? If His Excellency finds out?" Suddenly, the commander appears behind them, asking coldly, "Is there something I am not supposed to know?" Making the officers turn in sheer terror as they cry out, "Your Excellency!" The commander stands in the elegant hallway, looking down sternly at Hayden. Looking back at the closed window, Hayden maintains his composure and says, "I only spoke with Lady Daphne." Hayden looks up innocently and explains, "I didn't do anything wrong, so don't worry. Lady Daphne even forgave me for dropping by unannounced." Turning his back to the boy, the commander replies firmly, "You sound as if it's fine just because Daphne forgave you." Extending his hand toward Hayden, the commander declares, "You are wrong, Hayden. Everything in this territory requires my permission." Clenching his fist tightly, the commander asserts with a stern and cold expression, meaning, "If you didn't get my permission, whatever you did is a problem." Merceau looks on with deep concern while Hayden remains deadpan, realizing which means, bowing politely, Hayden thinks, "Okay, message received," and says aloud, "I will keep that in mind. May I return to my room now, father?" While the commander looks back over his shoulder. The commander sighs softly and loosens up slightly, the tense atmosphere around him dissipating. The commander gives his consent, saying, "Yes, you may go." A scenic view of the snowy, old European-style buildings of the territory bathed in the warm light of sunset. Walking together down the hallway, Merceau lectures Hayden, "Do you have any idea how worried I was? His Excellency treats Lady Daphne with such respect. You should be glad it ended with just this." Hayden suddenly stops and says, "Oh, right, speaking of Lady Daphne," prompting a confused Mirsal to ask. Turning around with a sly grin, Hayden breaks the news. She wants a divorce. Merceau stares in complete disbelief and stammers, "What?" As Hayden casually adds, "I wanted that too, so I offered to help." As they continue walking, Hayden says, "And one more thing." With an innocent shrug, Hayden delivers the final blow. She's looking for a remarriage partner, which causes a literal bolt of lightning to strike a completely frozen and mortified Merceau in the background. Wide-eyed and blushing in sheer panic, Merceau's thoughts race. What did she say again? Did she ask me to find someone good? I guess she had no one else to talk to about this. What can I do? I'll have to do my best to help. A beautiful memory shows a blushing Lady Daphne looking back softly toward a serious Merceau in his military uniform. Narration, but they still care for each other. Haydam thinks bringing them together would be a piece of cake, but when he is interrupted by Merceau quietly calling out, Master Haydam. Blushing and looking extremely flustered, Merceau hesitatingly asks, what do I have to do to become a... Staring at Merceau with a deadpan expression, Chibi Haydam sighs internally. Oh, brother. Walking down the hallway, Haydam instructs him, first you'll have to treat me well, to which Merceau submissively replies, yes, sir. Haydam adds, hide your face, it's too obvious, making Merceau mumble, ah, understood, while Haydam thinks, at this rate, meeting her in secret is out of the question. An aerial view of 3 cadets standing on a snowy street as narration notes, the rumor that Haydam caused a scene at Daphne's residence quickly died down. 2 crossed rifles glow brightly against a snowy forest backdrop. Narration, which was like a flare signaling the start of the subjugation war. Everyone became busy with preparations. Merceau is seen in a lab or medical room consulting with an elderly, bald researcher holding a clipboard. Looking down at the commander's grand office, Haydam stands before his father's desk. Narration, and since I also planned to join the subjugation war, I was about to get busy too. Haydam looks completely taken aback, asking, what? Sitting behind his desk and checking a revolver, the commander says firmly, I said no hunting. A close-up of Haydam's narrow, suspicious eye as he thinks, what is going on now? In a cute chibi illustration, Haydam and Taejong run with rifles, while a blonde boy complains, what about me, from behind. Narration, before the subjugation war begins in earnest, I was going to train Taejong. I thought the 2 of us could go hunting, while text mentions you need to start with basic training in the army. The commander looks at Haydam standing in the middle of the spacious, luxurious office and says, this is when hungry monsters come out looking for food. It's too dangerous. Leaving Haydam to think in disappointment, looks like I won't even get to step outside. Pointing to a calendar on a corkboard, Haydam asks, then how am I supposed to prepare for the next subjugation war? But the commander cuts him off. The subjugation war? The commander explains, your admission to the military academy is just around the corner. You can join the subjugation war after you graduate. While Haydam stares in shock, thinking, the military academy? The place that takes 6 years to graduate? As small pink text reads, we can't send a greenhorn to the subjugation war. Frustrated, Haydam slams his hand on the desk and shouts, how could you do this without even consulting me? But the commander calmly interrupts. More importantly, the young boy listens in surprise as his father reveals that Daphne told him about their conversation regarding Luna Moon. The boy calmly confirms, asking if there's a problem. Looking down sternly from behind his desk, the commander asks if the boy heard that Luna Moon was a player, catching him completely off guard. Looking down thoughtfully, the boy admits that he heard she wasn't a person from this world, realizing in his mind that the commander knew about it all along. In a nostalgic flashback, the commander remembers Luna Moon as a woman who always said absurd things, which made it hard for him to easily believe her words at the time. Clenching his hands over his face in deep regret, the commander laments that if he had known he would never see her again, he would have listened to her a little closer. Turning his attention back to the boy, the commander decides to finally reveal why he married Daphne instead of Luna Moon. Overwhelmed with emotion, the commander reveals that Luna Moon was actually the one who wanted him to marry Daphne, and that she left the moment she realized she was pregnant. A single letter rests on an envelope representing the final message she left behind, instructing him to marry Daphne and become the commander. The commander reflects on how much he wanted to ask her if they ever crossed paths again. Looking down gently at young Haydam, the commander expresses his deep gratitude for at least being able to find his son. The commander warns that while Haydam is allowed to cause minor trouble, joining the subjugation war is absolutely out of the question. Haydam sighs in frustration, realizing that having a doting father has become a major obstacle to his plans. Chibi diagrams illustrate the complicated relationships of love, respect, and friendship between Luna Moon, the commander, and Daphne. Haydam realizes that while Daphne didn't kick Luna Moon out, he still doesn't know her true motives. Red light flares as a reminder of the impending doom. Haydam reminds himself that the second apocalypse will begin in 10 years, making a 6-year stay at the military academy a massive waste of precious time. Looking down solemnly, Haydam wishes he could tell his father about the second apocalypse, but knows he would only be dismissed as a madman. Chibi illustrations depict a comical but terrifying worst-case scenario where the commander orders Mirsal to shoot Haydam upon discovering he isn't his real son. Haydam resolves that he cannot reveal his true identity. Leaning over his desk and looking at papers, the boy ponders if there is any viable way to convince his father without exposing his true identity. Back in the present, the commander sternly dismisses the boy, telling him he may leave if they are finished speaking.
Stopping in his tracks, Haydam turns back and brings up their previous conversation, asking his father if he would share everything in return if Haydam did the same.
Looking back over his shoulder, Haydam asks his father if he isn't curious about why he wasn't surprised at all upon learning his mother's identity. Haydam stares back at his father, admitting that what he is about to say will be very hard to believe. The woman he loved was a player, and his child is a regressor from the future. The commander stares at his son in absolute disbelief, repeating the word in shock. A regressor? Haydam gives a firm and serious nod, confirming his words without hesitation. Haydam stares at his father, knowing that the commander won't be able to simply ignore this revelation. A memory of the commander's deep regret over losing Luna Moon resurfaces. Haydam knows his father cannot bear to lose someone he cares about to a tragedy again. Walking slowly toward his son, the commander says he has one question to ask. Leaning down and looking directly into Haydam's eyes, the commander asks why he is only choosing to reveal his identity as a regressor now. Looking down somberly, Haydam replies that he is doing it now to warn him that they don't have much time left, leaving the commander stunned. Haydam's strategic thoughts continue, knowing that framing the warning this way will prevent his father from taking his words lightly. Looking up with absolute gravity, Haydam delivers the ultimate warning. In 10 years, another apocalypse is coming. He knows his father will listen to avoid living with regret again. A grand, elegant door slowly creaks open, letting bright sunlight into the commander's office. The commander looks up from his desk as a familiar voice calls out to him. Standing tall at the entrance, Merceau salutes respectfully and reports his return now that his disciplinary confinement has officially ended. Welcoming him back, the commander mentions hearing rumors about Merceau visiting the research lab frequently. Merceau admits he had something to develop, showing his dedication even while being disciplined. Shifting the topic, Merceau tells the commander that there is something important he needs to ask. Looking serious, Merceau asks if the rumors are true that young Haydam is going to participate in the military academy training. The commander confirms that it is true, mentioning he is meeting the superintendent today to finalize the training date, prompting Merceau to ask if he isn't worried. Merceau admits that while Haydam is exceptionally talented, he is still far too young to face such seasoned opponents. Merceau points out that his training opponents are all experienced cadets, meaning that even a single moment of letdown could lead to disaster. Merceau warns gravely that Haydam could end up seriously injured if they proceed with this training. The commander asks about the reactions of the other officers, and Merceau admits they aren't positive. The commander quietly taps his pen against his desk. Looking back at Merceau, the commander reflects on how long they have known each other. As a glowing light shines from a mysterious cave in the middle of a snowy forest, the commander talks about how his years of facing countless enemies taught him the true power of instinct. Merceau listens in confusion as the commander explains how many lives a warrior's instinct can either save or end. Looking down thoughtfully, the commander admits to Merceau that he couldn't believe it at first either. In a flashback to the conversation between father and son, Haydam repeats his terrifying warning about the apocalypse coming in 10 years. Sweating in sheer shock, the commander stammers, struggling to process his young son's words. Looking his father straight in the eye, Haydam calmly acknowledges that the truth is incredibly hard to believe. Gripping his chest tightly as a cold sweat runs down his neck, Haydam trembles and says that those horrific moments from the future are still painfully vivid to him. Staring down at his small hands, the boy explains that after facing an unavoidable and brutal death, he opened his eyes to find himself back in the body of his 10-year-old self. Haydam firmly declares, "If this life is my second chance, I want to stop the apocalypse this time, no matter what." The commander notes how the boy's serious attitude immediately caught his attention. Haydam asks his father, "Didn't you find it strange that I'm far too mature and that I know so much about the military?" The commander remains silent, looking at his son. Haydam continues, explaining that his father would likely ask him to prophesy what happens next, but he cannot do that because his regression has already changed parts of the future he once knew. As Haydam stands before his father, the commander thinks to himself that a slight sense of unease has begun to stir in his mind. Haydam suggests a solution, saying, "So instead of a prophecy, I will show you concrete proof." With absolute resolve, Haydam requests, "Please allow me to take on the military academy's training simulation." The commander is utterly shocked by Haydam's unexpected request to join the training simulation. The grand and imposing exterior of the Kola Zone Military Academy stands tall against the darkened sky. To the general public, the military academy's curriculum is known to consist of theory and real combat training to prepare for fighting monsters. However, behind closed doors, there is one more highly restricted training program conducted in absolute secret. This secret program is the Anti-Personnel Training Simulation, which is simply combat training against humans. Because skilled cadets are pitted against each other, the simulation boasts an extremely high level of difficulty, with preparations that are as rigorous as actual military drills.
This rigorous simulation prepares them for eventual combat against other zones. Because it is a top-secret military exercise, any leak of related information is strictly controlled. The commander looks at Haydam suspiciously and asks, "How do you, who lived outside, know about this training? Only myself and a handful of officers should know about this." Haydam answers confidently, "Because I've already graduated from the military academy once in the future."
Haydam places his hand over his chest, declaring, "So rather than something uncertain like a prophecy, I will prove my words are true through my skills." Hearing this, the commander becomes certain of his son's determination. Bowing deeply, Haydam asks, "I will pass the training with top honors, so please trust me." Moved by his resolve, the commander decides to trust his child's words. Remembering Haydam's request to undergo the training, the commander decides to fully support his son's bold decision. The commander turns to Murso and asks, "Murso, do you think I am being swayed by personal feelings?" The commander admits that personal feelings certainly play a part since Haydam is his child with Luna Moon, leaving Murso completely stunned. Looking out the window, the commander says, "I feel like there are things guns and walls can no longer stop." The commander asks Murso to trust his instinct just this once, wondering what the future might hold while Murso remains silent in deep thought. The commander wonders if Haydam might truly grow to become the ultimate hope of their zone. The grand architecture of the military academy is illuminated by the bright daylight. Dressed in his neat military academy uniform, young Haydam stands respectfully before the academy superintendent's desk. The military academy superintendent stares at the boy with a deeply displeased expression, grumbling, "You." Looking back calmly, Haydam thinks, "Oh dear," as he asks, "What did you just say?" A sharp-eyed cadet named Playton steps forward and says firmly, "I said we cannot allow non-cadets to participate in training." Haydam realizes he has finally met the person known as the Academy's blockhead. Playton is the son of Chief Anton, an exceptionally outstanding cadet who is set to graduate as the valedictorian of the military academy. Despite his father being the leader of the pro-Daphne faction, Playton never acts arrogant. He gets along well with the pro-Hayden faction, earning him the respect of many cadets. As Playton asks the superintendent to reconsider, Haydam looks on, thinking that there is still a major issue with Playton's character. Playton argues adamantly, "We cannot let a young child who hasn't even enrolled join the training." The superintendent tries to reason with Playton, suggesting they show some flexibility since the commander approved it, while Haydam realizes Playton's extreme uprightness is why everyone calls him a blockhead. Refusing to back down, Playton calls out, "Superintendent." Playton passionately defends Haydam, asking how they could humiliate a member of the Cola Zone with such a request, while the superintendent tries to calm him down. Haydam speaks up, calmly stating, "I agree with that. Of course, I don't want flexibility in my training either." Haydam politely turns down the special treatment, saying, "I appreciate your consideration, Superintendent, but that won't be necessary," leaving the nervous superintendent to murmur that he was only worried. Haydam announces his true motive, saying, "I came here to see the skills of the elite cadets firsthand, catching everyone by surprise." Playton watches Haydam closely, thinking to himself that the young boy is indeed as unusual as the rumors say. Playton warns him that the simulation is close to real combat and could lead to serious injury, but Haydam simply replies, "I don't care." Playton misinterprets Haydam's stance, praising his attitude to watch, learn, and grow as admirable even if he lacks skill, which leaves Haydam looking thoroughly confused. To protect the boy, Playton requests to be assigned to Haydam's team to help balance things out if he must participate. Playton adds that this arrangement will be good because it allows Haydam to observe the combat with a much lower risk of injury. Without a moment of hesitation, Haydam instantly rejects the offer, saying, "No thank you." Playton reassures him that there is no shame in passing with help, emphasizing teamwork, but Haydam quickly corrects him, "Oh, that's not what I mean." Haydam bluntly explains, "If we're on the same team, I can't prove I'm better than you," leaving Playton completely baffled and speechless. Haydam nonchalantly adds, "I forgot to mention, I came to show that I'm better than all of you cadets." Haydam privately thinks that, honestly, enrolling in the academy feels like a massive waste of time for him. As the training begins in a snowy forest, the simple rules of the simulation are set. Standing in the freezing snow, the cadets listen to the winning conditions. They must either achieve total annihilation of the enemy or plant their flag on the opponent's flagpole. Sensors on your training uniform will detect hits. If you take a fatal hit, you will be marked as dead, so be careful. The instructor explains the rules of the simulation. "Instructor, I have a question." A cadet with light-colored hair steps forward to speak. "This is our usual training ground, but this is Lord Haydam's first time here. For fairness, shouldn't we use a different training ground?" The cadet expresses his concern about an unfair home ground advantage. "No, it's fine." Haydam calmly speaks up from behind, declining the offer to change locations. I'm going to win regardless of where we play, so let's just do it wherever is most comfortable for the cadets. Smiling brightly, Haidam delivers a highly confident declaration that leaves everyone speechless. An awkward, tense silence falls over the training ground as the cadets stare at Haidam with growing annoyance and disbelief. What did that brat just say? The cadets burn with fury, highly insulted by the young boy's casual arrogance.
Just because his father is the commander, he thinks he's the commander himself. Where does he get the nerve to talk like that? The cadets grumble in frustration as they go to select their training weapons. He's definitely refusing to change the location so he can make excuses about fighting in an unfavorable spot if he loses. Everyone, calm down. A cadet continues to complain, but Playton steps in to restore order.
Don't say things behind someone's back that you wouldn't say to their face, Playton reprimands his fellow cadets as he equips his face mask. And the reason Lord Haidam is participating alone is likely because he has no other choice. What? Playton explains, surprising the grumbling cadets with his defense of Haidam.
First, no matter how skilled you are, it's better to have no allies at all than uncooperative ones. Playton begins his tactical breakdown, pointing out that uncooperative allies would only get in Haidam's way.
Second, if Lord Haidam gets injured during training, the cadets who failed to protect him would be in a difficult position. Playton notes the political dilemma of having Haidam on a team. And finally, third, Playton looks out over the snow-covered valley, continuing his analysis. Lord Haidam is small, so it's easier for him to hide using the terrain and features. In that case, moving alone is actually an advantage. Playton explains that the boy's small size makes solo stealth highly effective in this forest. So there is only one target Lord Haidam will aim for. Playton deduces Haidam's singular objective, our camp's flagpole. He pinpoints the victory condition Haidam will inevitably target. Since it's impossible to defeat us all alone, he'll target the flagpole when we let our guard down. Playton lays out the predicted path of Haidam's stealth assault. Lord Haidam's provocative words might also be a strategy to rile us up. If that's the reason, then his past rudeness makes sense. Playton suggests that Haidam's earlier arrogance was a calculated attempt to make them lose their composure.
So he wasn't just looking down on us and ignoring us.
No, he probably was genuinely ignoring you. While the other cadets laugh in relief, Playton quietly sweat drops, knowing Haidam likely did mean to ignore them. Anyway, Lord Haidam is taking this training seriously, so it's only polite that we give it our all as well. Playton rallies his squad to show their true strength. Now, you guys head to Lord Haidam's camp, but make sure to act as conspicuously as possible. Playton instructs his teammates to act as a loud decoy squad. Once Lord Haidam avoids you and heads for our flagpole, I will lie in ambush and snipe him immediately. Playton reveals his plan to wait at their flagpole and eliminate the boy himself. That's the plan. Now go. Flush out the rabbit. Adjusting his goggles, Playton commands his team to begin the operation.
Yes, sir.
The squad shouts in unison as Playton prepares his rifle, ready to spring his trap.
The conspicuous decoy squad heads out into the deep, freezing snow, moving in a tight formation.
What the? Two of the cadets in the assault squad halt in their tracks as they spot something unexpected. Why are those guys crowding together like easy targets? Crouched high up in a tree, Haidam watches the decoy squad through his binoculars with a perplexed expression. Fine, then. Deciding not to question his easy fortune, Haidam lowers his binoculars and prepares to move.
Time to warm up. Haidam gets ready to begin his counteroffensive, completely unfazed by the numerical disadvantage.
Meanwhile, Playton stands perfectly still in ambush at the home camp, scanning the snowy perimeter. I heard warning shots. Playton hears distant gunfire, indicating that the training match has officially begun. He'll be coming this way soon, but I mustn't let my guard down. Playton keeps his rifle trained on the approach, waiting patiently near the flagpole. If you underestimate him just because he's 10, you'll only end up embarrassing yourselves. I share my father's opinion on this. Playton remembers the solemn warning his father, Chief Anton, gave him about Haidam. When I first heard him say that, I wondered why he held a 10-year-old brat in such high regard. How should I deal with that arrogant brat? Playton recalls his determination to prove his worth during his intense training. But seeing him again now, I realize that smile isn't a sneer, nor is it a tactical facade. Playton reflects on Haidam's genuine, unwavering confidence. Lord Haidam is enjoying our reactions, like a predator with its prey right in front of it. Playton realizes that the young boy carries the terrifying aura of an experienced predator. Wait, why is it so quiet? He should have shown himself by now. Don't tell me my teammates were. Playton's eyes widen as a heavy silence settles, realizing his entire squad might have already been eliminated. Playton is suddenly startled as a bright blue paint bullet flies past him, splattering against the wooden barrier right next to his head. So close! Haydam's voice rings out playfully from the snowy forest. Footprints rapidly appear in the snow as Haydam moves with unbelievable agility and speed, flanking Playton's position. As expected, Plotin is a bit different. When did he? Haydam is impressed by Plotin's quick reflexes, while Plotin struggles to track the boy's blinding speed. How did you know where I was in ambush? Among the cadets who invaded my camp, Playton was the only one I didn't see. Playton demands to know how he was found, and Haydam reveals he deduced the ambush by process of elimination. Then how did you know I wasn't in the assault squad? Everyone was wearing goggles and masks. I still have a chance. I know this terrain better. If I keep him talking to pinpoint Haydam's location, Playton tries to keep Haydam talking to locate his position and turn the tables. Playton waits breathlessly behind the wooden barricade, straining his ears to hear any movement in the freezing wind. He's gone? Playton's eyes widen in sheer panic as the voice suddenly vanishes from the area. Before he can react, a barrage of paint bullets hits Plotin, splattering blue paint all over his chest and rifle. You can hide your face, but you can't hide your height or your stride. Haydam appears right behind Playton, pointing his rifle with absolute composure as he explains how he identified him. That's impossible! Playton falls back in complete defeat, utterly overwhelmed by the 10-year-old boy's peerless combat intellect and execution. A final rapid stroke of movement marks the decisive conclusion of the training simulation. Looking through his sniper scope, Playton narrows his eyes, focusing intensely as he prepares to make his move, muttering, "Again!" Keeping his gaze locked through the lens, Playton spots an abandoned rifle lying in the snow, thinking in surprise, "Wait, that's..." Playton recalls his tactical analysis of Haydam's unique advantages. Since Haydam is small, it's easier for him to hide using the terrain and features. He suddenly realizes another crucial detail about Haydam's physical build. Right, being small also means being light. Dropping silently from above like a shadow, Haydam prepares to strike an unsuspecting cadet as Playton's thoughts echo, which means it's hard to detect his movements or sounds. With blinding speed, Haydam executes a clean, rapid strike with his knife to eliminate his target. A notification banner announces the decisive conclusion of the mock battle. Team A all eliminated. Team B wins. The silence returns to the freezing, snow-covered forest where the training took place. Staring down at his discarded rifle in the snow, Playton asks in disbelief, "Did you defeat my entire team before coming here?" Sitting down with paint splattered across his uniform, Playton looks defeated as Haydam calmly responds, "I told you." Holding a water bottle, Haydam gazes at Playton and asserts, "I'm more than enough on my own." Haydam continues his blunt praise, noting, "I heard Playton's specialty is long-range sniping. You probably planned this entire operation, too. Any ordinary kid would have been completely helpless." Staring at the snow-covered ground, Haydam reveals his true motive. "My participation in this training simulation was partly to see Playton's skills firsthand." Looking out over the frozen valley, Haydam acknowledges Plotin's leadership abilities, quick judgment, and leadership in commanding teammates. Turning to Playton with a serious expression, Haydam delivers an unexpected offer. "You pass, Playton. How would you like to become my aide after graduation?" Playton is completely stunned by the sudden offer, while Haydam smiles warmly at his defeated opponent. Back in the grand office of the academy, Merceau presents a document to the eye-patch-wearing commander, reporting, "As you ordered, I had the cadets evaluate their training with Lord Haydam. This is the report compiling all of their feedback." The commander stares down in silence, carefully reading through the compilations of the cadets' reviews. In case one of the report, an anonymous cadet with a black bar over his eyes complains, "I've never seen a 10-year-old kid play so dirty." A flashback panel illustrates the cadet's complaint as Haydam sneaks up on two cadets. Lord Haydam approached the two cadets at the very back. The flashback continues, revealing Haydam's deceptive tactics. He claimed the commander had a secret message for them. The cadet passionately recounts the ambush, and then bang! Startled by the gunshot, I turned around and saw him suddenly collapse to the ground. The cadet grumbles about Haydam's relentless trickery. Did he get hit during the fight? But when I rushed over to check on him, he stabbed me right then and there. In case 2 of the report, another cadet sits in front of Merceau and remarks, "Lord Haydam was like a seasoned soldier." The cadet's feedback continues over a pile of reference manuals. Predicting our movements and devising counter-strategies is something even a child could do. Recalling the overwhelming pressure Haydam exerted, the cadet adds, "But Lord Haydam executed his plan with extreme precision. He was completely relaxed, without a hint of tension, as if he had already fought us dozens of times." Merceau looks deeply contemplative, remembering Haydam's icy, unshakable confidence during their training. In case 3 of the report, Merceau asks a female cadet, "How was Lord Haydam's performance?" With an intense, reverent look in her eyes, the cadet declares with absolute conviction, Lord Hatem is a god. Merceau summarizes the reports to the commander, saying, there were a few unusual opinions, but I believe they were just in awe of Lord Hatem's skills. He privately grumbles, he probably ordered the joint training just to show off his kid. I'll just play along. The commander turns to Merceau and drops a bombshell. Merceau, Hatem will lead this subjugation war. Merceau's eyes widen in sheer shock.
Surprised by the reckless command, Merceau reacts in utter disbelief, thinking, what? Hatem looks up from his war map with a smug grin, asking, why, worried I'll ruin your reputation? As the narration explains, after training, the commander sent me permission to join the subjugation war, along with orders to take overall command. A detailed dossier of Merceau Pendleton is shown, with the narration noting, of course, to avoid backlash from the other officers, Merceau is officially registered as the subjugation war commander. Merceau pinches the bridge of his nose in exhaustion, sighing, you know that's not what I mean. Mock training and real combat are completely different. Merceau looks seriously at the young boy, saying, of course, as the cadet said, Lord Hatem, your skills are extraordinarily impressive. Pointing to the tactical map, Merceau voices his growing suspicion. Even the subjugation route you planned, it's an area that's hard to understand from a map alone, yet you know it inside out, as if you've already been there. Hatem looks back quietly, thinking, is reading a map really that surprising? I don't plan on telling Merceau that I'm a regressor yet, but he keeps digging. Slapping his hand flat onto the map to cut Merceau off, Hatem decides, time to change the subject. Pointing directly at the map, Hatem boldly criticizes their outdated methods. Merceau, what we should be focusing on right now isn't the map, it's how inefficiently you fight. A schematic illustration describes the standard military tactics. I heard that in a subjugation war, you usually incapacitate the monster first and then find and destroy its gemstone. Yes, we have to stop their movements first to locate the gemstone. Hatem scoffs at the conventional approach, arguing, isn't that incredibly inefficient? If you destroy the gemstone from the start, you can skip the rest of the fight. Hatem maintains a firm, unwavering gaze, challenging the long-established combat doctrines of the Empire. Merceau patiently counters, explaining, Lord Hatem, the gemstone's location varies by monster. It's easy to find on small to mid-size monsters because of their size. Merceau looks serious as he highlights the main issue, but with large-scale species, it's almost impossible to even guess. Merceau finishes his explanation, and the monsters we face in a subjugation war are mostly large-scale species. Destroying the gemstone first, as you suggest, is practically impossible. Hatem quietly thinks, look at him, getting all serious. A knowing smirk plays on Hatem's face, thinking, but a dark silhouette of massive beasts looms as Hatem recalls his vast past life experience. During my run to clear every zone, how many monsters did I slay? The gemstone is a monster's vital point, so it's always hidden in the safest spot on its body. Recalling his battles against various beasts, Hatem mentally notes, for example, a monster with horns will have its gemstone near those horns. Ultimately, after playing through multiple times, you can tell just by how they walk. With complete confidence in his knowledge, Hatem's instinct guides him. Where the gemstone is, my instinct tells me. Hatem tells Merceau with absolute confidence, I know exactly where the gemstone is. Merceau is taken aback and asks, what? As Hatem continues, so this subjugation war. Hatem smugly smiles and declares we're going to run it with high efficiency, leaving Merceau completely bewildered and silent. Late at night, the young Hatem lies awake in his bed, staring intensely at the glowing screen of his blue tablet. As the light from the device illuminates his face, Hatem quietly thinks, Merceau didn't seem convinced at all, but I've laid out my plan, so that's that. Just as Hatem taps the tablet screen to continue browsing, a sudden system alert stops him in his tracks. More importantly, he reads the latest public chat room message in surprise. SSAP possible. So there are 2 dopamine addicts? What is this about? Looking at the mounting notifications, Hatem notices the group chat room messages are rapidly piling up as users like Home Protector and T-Bastard argue, making him wonder, did something happen? Deciding to investigate, Hatem thinks, let's check the unread messages first, and opens Junkie's message stating, I received a strange message. Junkie explains it was sent by someone calling themselves Dopamine Addict. Did anyone else get it? Hatem stares in disbelief, murmuring, a self-proclaimed dopamine addict? Recalling how Safe Zone 8 had pretended to be him once before, Hatem stares at the screen and wonders, did another impersonator show up? As he scrolls down, he sees other members like Dentist, God, Sat Possible, and Home Protector all chiming in to confirm they received the same suspicious message, leaving him wondering, but what on earth does it say?
God shares a screenshot of the message. Interaction with other zones is possible, excluding the unicorn zone. Haidam is completely stunned. The screen reveals a shocking detail, but the sender's ID was dopamine. Haidam bolts upright in bed, his eyes wide in panic as he realizes, wait, it came from my ID? On the screen, Junkie and Home Protector debate the sender's true identity, while God laments about having their friend request ignored. As the members discuss how interzone communication shouldn't be possible yet, Haidam recalls his deep gaming knowledge. In the game, there were interzone shields until the second apocalypse. Looking out his bedroom window at the quiet night sky, Haidam thinks, come to think of it, I've never been to the zone boundaries either. I should check it out during this subjugation war. Staring at a distorted, glitching unicorn zone crest on his tablet, Haidam ponders, anyway, why is the player from the unicorn zone putting on this kind of show? In the chat, God and Dentist suspect the sender is a player from the unicorn zone, prompting Junkie to suggest checking the public chat room member list. Haidam mutters, the chat room member list? Looking over the list of 8 names, Haidam remains confused and thinks a total of 8 people in the order they entered the public chat room? Looks fine to me. But the chat clarifies that the creator's ID was written twice. Haidam's eyes widen as he wonders, what does that mean? Seeing the screen split showing the 2 identical Korean names for Dopamine Addict at the top of the list, Haidam realizes, don't tell me, on everyone else's list, my ID appeared twice. Tapping the screen, he analyzes the interface. If you select your own ID from the chat room list, your own view information pops up. But if you select someone else's ID, a system prompt rings out. Would you like to send a friend request to Dopamine Addict? A chill runs down Haidam's spine as the terrifying truth is laid bare. Another player was here from the very beginning. Shaking off his shock, Haidam decides, first, let's check the messages from the others. There might be something important, only to find a barrage of panic spam from Home Protector demanding he check the chat room. Haidam calmly replies, not me, dismissing the spam. But as he turns his attention to T-Bastard's private messages, his eyes widen in sudden shock. T-Bastard's messages fill the screen, claiming the impersonator knew everything about their private one-on-one conversation. Haidam gasps in disbelief. Mutual friends with another dopamine addict? Frustrated and seeking answers, Haidam finally sends a direct message to the other ID, thinking, I'm the one who wants to ask. Dopamine addict, who on earth are you? Clutching the glowing tablet, Haidam lets out a knowing, sharp smirk as he prepares to deal with this mysterious rival. In a dark, ruined area, T-Bastard sits on a high ledge, staring down at his tablet screen with arms crossed, grumbling, why isn't this bastard replying? Finally, a notification pops up from Dopamine Addict asking, we were already friends? Dopamine Addict quickly follows up with a teasing message. Aren't you just an idiot who accepted 2 friend requests at once? Veins of anger pop on T-Bastard's face as he furiously types, I'm seriously gonna kill you when we get out of here, while Haidam smiles in bed thinking, he's so easy to tease. Staring back at the screen, Haidam's smile fades as he deeply ponders. But how does the impersonator know what T-Bastard and I chatted about? Did they hack the system? Or did T-Bastard just slip up? Just as the thought crosses his mind, T-Bastard messages, just so you know, I only gave that bastard short answers. Haidam blinks, thinking, did he read my mind? Dopamine Addict asks, was there anything weird when you talked to him? T-Bastard responds, you're always weird, so I didn't notice anything different. Haidam sighs to himself, you're the one who constantly threatens to kill me, so you're definitely the weirder one. The tension rises as T-Bastard sends a definitive claim, but there is one thing I'm sure of, he's in the unicorn zone. Dopamine Addict asks, what's your proof? As T-Bastard reaches deep into his ragged cloak to reveal his evidence. T-Bastard holds up a fresh, vibrant citrus fruit and replies, because I got a tangerine through an item trade. Staring blankly at the screen, Haidam mutters in complete surprise, a tangerine? In a world hit by an ice age, finding fruit is no easy task, but it's a different story for the Unicorn Zone, the city of scientists. The city's massive structures hover high above the snowy clouds. They have such overwhelming technology that they literally floated their entire zone into the air to survive. Inside the pristine, high-tech facilities, rows of shelves are stocked with countless chemical jars and scientific compounds. Since they have a self-sufficiency system unseen in other zones, Earth's ecosystem must still be preserved there. Back in his room, Haidam sits cross-legged, crossing his arms in deep thought as he concludes, this confirms the impersonator is in the Unicorn Zone. On the chat screen, T-Bastard asks, are you going to check it out? And Dopamine Addict casually responds, I'll just leave him be, leaving T-Bastard baffled. Dopamine Addict explains, I'll let him clear zones while pretending to be me. Think of it as leaving it in his care until I go take over the Unicorn Zone. T-Bastard grinds his teeth, muttering, where does this bastard get his confidence? T-Bastard presses further, asking on the screen, wasn't Unicorn originally your main base? The dark-haired boy continues to warn him. If he's impersonating you, it means he knows all your walkthroughs.
T-Bastard stands tensely in a white virtual grid landscape, facing Dopamine Addict as if confronting him in person. T-Bastard delivers a final daunting question. Are you confident you can tear down the impregnable fortress you built?
The dark-haired boy looks down in amusement, leaving the smaller, disheveled boy utterly confused as he mutters, "Huh?" A system narration asks, weren't you a player who used to counter-strategy my walkthroughs, leaving the dark-haired boy visibly startled? A message box appears on the screen asking, why are you acting like there's no way to win, as the boy in the white shirt looks on with an encouraging smile. In the chat room, T-Bastard asks, you know my playstyle? To which Dopamine Addict replies, of course I do. You pop up on my feed all the time. You've been doing sniping play on me, causing the boy to gasp in surprise. As T-Bastard strangely replies, I pop up often. I see. Haha, haha. The boy in the white shirt stares blankly at the screen, wondering what's wrong with him. Staring deeply, Hatem contemplates his odds. If I were to fight the impersonator right now, would my chances of winning be around 60%? I have the perks for clearing all zones, so I won't lose, but as T-Bastard said, I don't have a complete advantage. He acknowledges the difficult challenge because there is a technological gap between zones that my abilities alone cannot overcome. But staring at the glowing Unicorn Zone crest, he notes, but it's not like there's no way. Dopamine Addict instructs, message me if anything happens, and let me know if he messages you again. T-Bastard surprisingly agrees with okay and will do, leaving Hatem thinking he suddenly seems pretty compliant. A sudden alert sound rings out on the holographic screens, pulling Hatem's attention back to the active chat. Home Protector continues to spam messages, panicking over the impersonator starting from Dopamine Addict's main base, causing Hatem to sigh in annoyance. Why is this guy talking so much? Home Protector drops a sudden question. Didn't you say you'd take me to Unicorn later? Leaving Hatem completely bewildered as he mutters, huh? Home Protector shamelessly asks to ride his coattails to the Unicorn Zone. Dopamine Addict replies, okay, I'll think about it, prompting an ecstatic response, though Hatem mutters to himself, I only said I'd think about it. Dopamine Addict changes the subject. More importantly, check if the barrier to other zones is really gone. He warns if the barrier is really gone, the lower difficulty zones will get raided by other zones first, making Home Protector realize the danger. Looking at his screen from his bed, Hatem ponders, the closest one to the cigarette zone where Home Protector is was that zone. The narrator warns, I had a really bad feeling about the player who unlocked that zone.
Staring at the silent chat screens, Hatem quietly notes, no reply.
Closing his eyes to sleep, Hatem thinks, let them come. The narrative text echoes his absolute confidence, because I have no intention of losing, no matter who the opponent is. A heavy military boot steps firmly into the deep, fresh snow outside the safety of the zone boundaries. The blonde boy screams out in frustration, call me out more often, the military is so fucking hard. As the blonde boy continues his loud rant, Hatem glares back in utter embarrassment, thinking, this embarrassing bastard, you're gonna scare all the monsters away. The narration sets the objective. Today I'm going to show Merso the gemstone location identification technique and test the military ration prototype currently under development as we head outside the zone. The blonde boy grumbles, Merso, why are you looking at me, oh creep? I mean, why are you wearing a fatherly smile? Merso gently responds, it's just nice to see a kid acting his age. As Hatem quietly notes, he's 20, you know? A red-haired boy with freckles stares in silence, looking slightly nervous as they prepare to venture further. The red-haired boy asks with concern, is it really okay for us to go outside the zone alone? Merso reassures him, we won't be going far from the zone today, and I won't let you do anything dangerous.
Merso explains, this morning a large monster called a teal gator was spotted. It's supposedly injured, so we should find it quickly.
Merso continues, normally we would leave this to the watchtower guards, but if what Hatem said is true, we can find the gemstone instantly without damaging the teal gator. Hatem nods confidently, replying, of course.
The blonde boy holds up a small, star-shaped candy and asks, anyway, I wonder if the military rations turned out well? You mean this star candy?
As Merso proudly boasts about the protein-packed ration they developed, Hatem ignores him and asks the blonde boy, did you practice your heel in the army? To which the boy sheepishly replies, a little? The blonde boy explains, I think I can heal others as long as there's physical contact, prompting a surprised reaction from Hatem. Seeing Hatem's sparkly, confident expression, the blonde boy sweat drops and asks, what's with that smug look? Haidam says, "I'm just proud of you," making the blonde boy yell in frustration, "Cut it out. You were thinking, he's finally pulling his weight, weren't you?" Suddenly, Merceau raises a gloved hand to signal a halt, his expression turning sharp and serious. A massive, scaly teal gator lies motionless on the snowy ground just ahead of them in the quiet clearing. Looking ahead, Haidam quietly announces, "Target spotted." The red-haired boy nervously notes, "It has a wound on its right flank." Haidam quickly analyzes the situation. If it defended with its right side,
He scopes in, locating the beast's weak point. Then that teal gator's vital point, the gemstone, is...
with perfect timing, a shot rings out through the snowy forest as the answer is revealed, on its left abdomen. Merceau stares in complete shock, murmuring, "Incredible! You shattered the gemstone with absolute precision." Haidam coolly commands, "We'll need more people to carry the remains, so fire a flare," making the blonde boy grumble, "Bossy jerk." Pointing to the beast, Haidam boasts, "See? This cuts down combat time and minimizes damage to the edible parts," as Merceau responds in awe, as expected. Merceau solemnly remarks, "You truly are the son of the hero of the subjugation war," leaving Haidam slightly startled. While Merceau happily imagines a prosperous future for the Cola Zone and thinks monster hunting will be a breeze, Haidam sweat drops and thinks, "I thought he'd be suspicious, but is he excited?" Merceau says, "Still, just to be safe, we should get moving," but is cut off by a sudden mechanical humming sound in the sky. Hearing the strange sound, Haidam looks up at the sky, wondering, "Whirr?" Hovering high above on a high-tech flying board, a mysterious silver-haired man looks down, muttering in surprise. He's hanging around with Merceau? Haidam stands firmly in the snow, his back turned as he silently stares up at the unexpected visitor in the sky. The blonde boy looks back in complete shock, calling out as he recognizes the unexpected figure in the distance. "Hey, isn't that?" Looking down with a gentle smile from high above is a silver-haired young man. As the question arises, dopamine addict? The close-up reveals his prominent features, shaggy white hair and lifeless dark eyes. He stands confidently on his high-tech flying board, dressed in a sleek outfit. A complexion as pale as his white coat. The blonde boy and the red-haired boy stare in utter disbelief, recognizing a face every Safe Zone player would recognize. Stunned, the red-haired boy mutters in shock, "Sir," while Haidam waves his hand urgently, telling them to stay quiet. Merceau holds his position, keeping his rifle trained on the target. Haidam commands, "Merceau, you wait too," to which Merceau complies, "Yes, sir." The blonde boy is completely overwhelmed with excitement, shouting at the top of his lungs, "Dopamine addict! You're dopamine addict, right?" Disregarding any danger, the blonde boy happily dashes forward toward the visitor, leaving Haidam trailing behind with his rifle raised. The silver-haired boy stands in silence on his floating board, calmly looking down at the group running toward him. Before the blonde boy can get any closer, a hand firmly grabs his shoulder, forcefully stopping his advance. Haidam holds him back with a deadpan serious expression, warning, "Don't get close. He's not the guy you know." The blonde boy turns back to Haidam, completely bewildered. "What? Weren't you a fan of his? Don't tell me you don't recognize that face." Shaking his head, the blonde boy points excitedly at the white-haired player, insisting it's dopamine addict, as memories of the famous player flash through their minds. Staring up with intense focus, Haidam listens as the mysterious visitor begins to speak. "As for who I am," smiling casually, the silver-haired boy gestures with his hand. "You can find out just by opening my character profile," leaving Haidam visibly startled. Recalling the game's mechanics, Haidam opens the interface. "Right, that'll show me his real name and info." Looking closely at the screen, Haidam narrows his eyes in deep suspicion. But something feels off. He observes the player before him, thinking, not just because he looks exactly like my customization, but the silver-haired young man slowly steps off his hoverboard and walks forward over the snow, holding a strange device in his hand. Seeing him approach, the blonde boy eagerly points a finger and asks, "Hey, do you recognize me?" To which the white-haired player replies, "Room corner hubby?" Overjoyed to be recognized, the blonde boy turns to Haidam with a triumphant, smug grin. "How about that? He recognized me before you did." Meanwhile, the others stand tense, keeping their guns pointed at the stranger. Looking around in confusion, the blonde boy sweat drops and asks, "Wait, why is everyone pointing guns?" causing Haidam to sigh in disappointment. "What did they teach you in the military?" The visitor smiles warmly and reassures them. "No need to be scared. I didn't come here to hurt you." But Haidam isn't buying it, muttering, "What bullshit?" Staring through the scope of his rifle, Haidam hears the visitor mock him. "You're so tense you can't even open my character profile."
Haidam's tension builds as blue holographic screens float in the air. He admits to himself, it's frustrating, but he's right. I am hesitating to open his character profile.
Forcing himself to act, Haydam opens the character window, which displays name, dopamine addict, title, dopamine addict, zone, unicorn, relationship, friendly toward you. Shocked, he mutters, what? He really is dopamine addict. Looking at the floating interface screen, Haydam is completely dumbfounded. His title is dopamine addict? Haydam ponders in disbelief. A title like that actually existed? And decides to press further, asking, well, how did you do it? Prompting a confused reply, how did I do what? Locking eyes with the stranger, Haydam demands, how do you have that name? But the white-haired young man simply replies, it's too early to tell you that. Merso stands ready, keeping his gun aimed. The stranger shrugs. Let's put that aside for now. There's something I need to check. He drops a shocking line. Why are you traveling with Mersal? I thought I would have poisoned him, leaving Haydam completely stunned as he repeats, I? Haydam glares back, trying to make sense of the situation. Is he some crazy bastard role-playing as dopamine addict? Suddenly, a light bulb goes off in the blonde boy's head as he screams in revelation, now I get it, leaving Haydam utterly confused. The blonde boy furiously beats a giant traditional drum, shouting, I kept feeling like something was off. Why are you the only adult? We all came here as 10-year-olds. Room corner hubby is late to the party.
Staring blankly at the noisy blonde boy, Haydam deadpans, you just realized that? As the boy continues to yell, why is nobody answering me? Haydam's sweat drops, keeping his weapon raised as he thinks. He really is a bit too stupid to be a partner. The visitor sweat drops too, muttering, what?
Reaching deep into his coat, the silver-haired player thinks, I should probably get rid of him. Sensing immediate danger, Merso and Haydam instantly raise their weapons at him with perfect coordination. Suddenly, warning shots ring out as the white-haired visitor quickly dodges the incoming bullets. The blonde boy panics, grabbing Haydam's collar and screaming, hey, are you crazy? Why are you shooting at a player? To which Haydam calmly replies, it was just a warning shot. Looking at the smoking bullet casings in the snow, Haydam notes, besides, we can't kill him anyway. As the smoke clears, the silver-haired boy stands tall, his coat crackling with a high-tech hexagonal holographic shield. Looking down at his active shield, the visitor chuckles. That's one hell of a warning. Haydam retorts coolly, yeah, I would have done the same.
Stepping back onto his hoverboard, the silver-haired boy rises into the air, saying, good, this should be fine. Verification complete.
Looking up at the ascending player, the blonde boy asks in confusion, verification? What does that mean? The white-haired player looks down with a knowing smile, leaving Haydam startled as he explains, checking if I am growing well. Looking at the quiet digital space, Haydam seethes with frustration. I want to take that crazy bastard down right now, but with these outdated weapons, I wouldn't even be able to scratch him. Staring at the stranger's towering presence, Haydam thinks, but his attitude, acting like some veteran player who came to watch a newbie, it really pisses me off. The silver-haired visitor turns his hoverboard around to fly off, casually tossing a final remark. Oh, right. The silver-haired young man smiles calmly as he aims his gun directly forward, stating, I still have to give him his present. The blonde boy stands in the snow, looking back with a look of pure confusion and worry on his face. Suddenly, a loud gunshot echoes through the snowy forest with a deafening bang as Merso and Haydam react in shock.
Haydam takes a bullet directly to the chest, gritting his teeth in pain as blood splatters across his white uniform, while the silver-haired shooter watches coldly with his gun raised.
Looking down from his hoverboard, the mysterious shooter mutters to himself, so he's different from me. As the silver-haired young man flies away on his hoverboard, the red-haired boy yells out in panic, Brother, Lord Haydam! Merso quickly tends to the wounded Haydam, calmly analyzing the situation. Fortunately, it didn't hit a vital point. Focus on hemostasis. I'll go gather the soldiers. Merso instructs the red-haired boy, in the meantime, to troll the area to make sure monsters don't swarm us, and the freckle boy quickly nods, responding, yes, sir. Left alone with the blonde boy, Haydam winces as he holds his bleeding chest, thinking, this hurts like hell, while the blonde boy looks down at him in concern and confusion. The blonde boy fumes with anger, yelling, that dopamine addict bastard, is he a total murderer? As Haydam weakly responds, I'm not dead. The blonde boy looks down with teary, frantic eyes, shouting, you crazy bastard, why did you take a bullet to protect someone like me? Haydam looks up with a deadpan, blank expression, simply asking him in return, why do you think? The blonde boy is completely baffled as Haydam presents a glowing crystal in his hand, casually ordering him, heal me. Stunned by this request, the blonde boy pieces it together and asks in disbelief, did you get shot on purpose just to test my heal? Have you practiced your heal? If you make contact, you should be able to heal others too, right? Haidam calmly replies, yeah, causing the blonde boy to explode in anger, screaming, "You lunatic! Do you have any idea how insane you are?" While Haidam remains unfazed. The blonde boy places his hand on Haidam's chest, channeling a warm, glowing green light to begin healing his gunshot wound. As the healing process begins, the blonde boy demands, "Since I saved your life, I have a confession to make." Haidam replies, "Why are you calling me by my full name? It's giving me a bad feeling." "So what's this confession?" The blonde boy tells him, "Lean in for a second," to which Haidam simply replies, "Okay." The blonde boy whispers something shocking directly into Haidam's ear, catching him completely off guard. Staring at the blonde boy in sheer shock, Haidam asks, "You're what?" The blonde boy grabs Haidam by the collar, shaking him furiously as he screams in disbelief. "Dopamine addict? I thought you were T-bastard. Why are you only telling me this now?" While Haidam weakly groans, "Let go, that hurts. Then who the hell was that guy earlier?" Haidam sighs, explaining, "If I told you, you wouldn't have cooperated," leaving the blonde boy completely speechless and sulking in the background. Haidam pulls the blonde boy's hand away from his chest as the wound seals, noting, "This should be enough. If I heal any more, Merceau will get suspicious." The blonde boy pouts and asks in frustration, "Wait, so Taejong knew who you were, but I didn't?" While Haidam looks away silently. Haidam explains, "That's because the guy with Taejong impersonated me, so I had to tell Taejong first," prompting the blonde boy to grumble, "Why are there so many damn impersonators? What is there to gain by impersonating a sociopath like you?" Haidam warns him with a serious expression. "Unlike the first impersonator, the guy from earlier is dangerous." The blonde boy agrees, saying, "Of course he is. He literally tried to kill someone." Haidam reflects on the gravity of the situation. It's not just because of that. Dopamine addict can interact with all zones except the unicorn zone.
He continues to analyze the enemy, noting, "That guy unlocked the unicorn zone. He even impersonated me to send messages to other players. And seeing how he crossed over to this side, it seems there's no barrier between zones." This leaves the blonde boy wondering in shock. No barrier? Does that mean we can go to other zones before the second apocalypse?
Haidam ponders, "We'll have to check to be sure, but anyway, the most dangerous part is..." Looking directly at the blonde boy, Haidam reveals the ultimate concern. He's the only one with an adult body. The blonde boy wonders, could it be forced growth from the unicorn zone's technology? As he imagines a person growing inside a high-tech incubation pod. Haidam wipes away the blood on his hand, thinking, no, there must be another reason. He continues to analyze the mystery, thinking, though I don't know what it is yet. Deep in thought, Haidam tells himself, I am the real dopamine addict, so he's nothing but an impersonator. But we have too much in common. He clenches his blood-stained cloth, irritated as he recalls the stranger's words. And his comment about checking to see if I'm growing well bothers me. Thinking about it again makes me sick. Suddenly, the freckled red-haired boy runs back toward them through the snow, waving his arm and calling out, "Guys!" He delivers the news quickly. Merceau is coming back, as Haidam and the blonde boy turn their heads to listen. Haidam quickly warns the blonde boy, "We'll talk later." He adds a final instruction, and if anyone asks about today, don't say a word. When Merceau and the others arrive, Haidam lies on a stretcher, pretending to be weakly injured, saying, "I'm fine, so please focus on patrolling the zone." As the soldiers cry out in worry, young Master Haidam, in a different location, a majestic, dark, neoclassical mansion stands tall under the clear blue sky as someone questions, "Did you see that?" 3 military officers walk down the grand hallway of the mansion, gossiping. His own son was hurt, yet he didn't even care. Inside the room, the intimidating, iron-blooded chancellor with a black eye patch stands tall, looking down at Haidam as the narration box reads, he truly lives up to his title, the iron-blooded chancellor. It's a relief you have a healing ability. The chancellor glares with a sharp, piercing gaze, asking, "So who exactly was the one who shot you?" Prompting Haidam to think, the iron-blooded chancellor? Sitting in his hospital bed, Haidam answers, "I don't know either. No, to be precise." While thinking to himself, I need to choose my words carefully from here on. Haidam explains calmly, "It's someone I used to know, but don't know anymore." The chancellor stares back with his single sharp eye, pressing further. Does that mean he's someone you knew before you regressed? Haidam realizes Merceau must have reported everything, thinking, because Merceau must have blabbed to the commander. We spoke in Korean, but we use the word player. There's a high chance he reported that to the commander as well. An illustration depicts Haidam bypassing the military academy on a scooter via a shortcut labeled the illegitimate child pass, as he tells himself, without entering the military academy and to safely pull off the illegitimate child strategy, I must never let him find out that I'm a player. Haydam clutches his chest, continuing his careful train of thought. If I remember correctly, he's from the unicorn zone, but I don't know why he came all the way here. Perhaps? So before he doubts my identity, a new player might have appeared when I regressed, Haydam says, successfully shifting the attention to this mysterious newcomer. Another player, you say, the Chancellor murmurs, considering the possibility. If what you say is true, that might actually be the case. Haydam wonders if the Chancellor fell for his explanation, hoping he successfully cleared the hurdle and avoided suspicion. However, his hopes of bypassing the academy are shattered when the Chancellor sternly commands, "Go to the military academy." Haydam protests that he thought the discussion was settled, but the Chancellor counters, "Even as a regressor, you must not be used to that young body yet. That's probably why you got hurt." Placing a hand on Haydam's head, the Chancellor warns, "If you let your guard down, you could lose your life. Never forget the death of your mother, Luna Moon." "But you know we don't have time," the Chancellor continues, assuring him, "I'm not telling you to attend for 6 years. Just until you get used to that body, or at least until you participate in the next subjugation war," the Chancellor explains. "Only then can I comfortably grant you a position as an officer." Knowing he cannot serve as an operations officer without a formal rank, Haydam decides to accept it, thinking he can treat this brief stint as a short rest. The Chancellor leaves Haydam utterly speechless by adding, "It might be good to stay until you can dodge flying bullets." An ominous shadow looms over the academy as a narration box reads, "I don't think the other cadets will be happy about this." Inside a grand classroom, several military academy cadets sit at their desks, wearing troubled and bitter expressions. Whispers and mockery fill the halls as other cadets gossip, sneering, "To a mere 10-year-old kid? I heard some idiots lost 6-1, and they're supposed to be candidates for valedictorian? Connections really are everything." "Damn it," one of the defeated cadets mutters in frustration, gritting his teeth. "Because of us, even Senior Playton is—" Playton, a brown-haired cadet with bright green eyes, calmly reassures them, saying, "We fought fair and square, so you don't need to hang your heads." A silver-haired instructor adjusting his glasses sternly silences the complaints. "But it's not fair. If it weren't for the director, we wouldn't be treated like this. This training was classified, so make sure you don't speak a word of it." While the cadets whisper that they have no choice since it involves Haydam, an instructor suddenly enters and calls out, "Attention, everyone! I have an important announcement today," the instructor declares, drawing the immediate sharp attention of Playton. Standing before the class, Haydam is formally introduced in his new cadet uniform, maintaining a calm and indifferent expression. Haydam flashes a bright, innocent smile, but it only sends a shudder of dread and cold sweat down the spines of the cadets watching him. The humiliated cadets lament their situation, fuming, "We're already taking all the blame because of him. How much more will they mock us when they see that smug face?" The instructor asks, "Since his admission qualifications were already proven in the training simulation, I assume no cadet has any objections?" prompting Playton to slowly raise his hand. "I have something to say to Haydam," Playton announces, stepping forward to address the newcomer directly. Playton points out, "The 6 who lost to Haydam, those cadets might be fools." A striking, violet-eyed senior cadet smiles warmly as he continues, "But not all of our cadets are that pathetic." Playton keeps a tight, serious expression, staring directly ahead in absolute silence. Haydam looks back with his blank, dark eyes, coolly sizing up the challenge. "Then do you believe you can defeat me?" Haydam asks straightforwardly, looking directly at the confident senior as the other cadets watch. Haydam confidently says, "My father acknowledged me after just one training session, but it seems you all need one more verification," leaving the murmuring cadets wondering where he gets such extreme confidence. Stepping forward, Haydam declares, "I didn't win by luck, so let's settle this once and for all." "Through another training simulation," Haydam proposes with a calm, self-assured smirk. "Fine," the senior replies with an amused narrow of his violet eyes, inwardly noting, "Look at this kid, he's pretty cocky for a brat." He details the matchup, suggesting, "Then we can split the teams into Haydam and the defeated cadets versus our team." "How about a 6-on-6 like that?" the senior challenges, the situation framed as a strategic chess match between him and Haydam. "Sounds good," Haydam agrees smoothly, but adds, "But let's add one condition." Slamming his chess piece down, Haydam reveals his audacious rule. "My victory condition is that not a single person gets eliminated. If even one of my teammates is eliminated, I will admit defeat." "That will be your victory," Haydam asserts, leaving the silver-haired senior completely stunned and speechless at his sheer confidence. The senior's eyes grow intensely sharp as he asks in cold irritation, "Are you looking down on us right now?"